councillors and open the meeting at 12:29 p.m. Thank you for your attendance, and I'd also like to welcome the gallery. Thank you for having us up in Injune for the first council general meeting, I believe. I'm not sure since when, but certainly in this council term anyway. So thank you for coming. We hope it's interesting and informative. Yeah, we look forward to you participating in democracy at work. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, so moving on. Do we have anyone to confirm the ordinary meeting minutes of the 27th of January 2021? Councillor Edwards.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 27th of January 2021 be confirmed.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, can I just confirm that it was the copy that was circulated last night that is being confirmed?
Yeah, I'd like to confirm that that's the case.
Thank you.
CEO, what were the main differences with that one? I've read those, but is there particular items that were of difference there to the earlier ones?
There was the vote and division for the organisational structure was 6-3, so the names were recorded for those. So a couple of councillors picked up on that. So thank you for the checking. There was a councillor reference missing, and there was also something picked up by the staff that the prefix should have been OM, not GM. That's a system problem that needs to be resolved. So all of that has been tidied up.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for the confirmation of the minutes? Councillor Taylor, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. There was a request, can we have it up on the screen?
I'm just... Sorry, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's what I'm sorting now.
No problem, we can just wait for a second.
Could I suggest, councillors, that we... Oops. Could I suggest, councillors, that you keep going while I'm sorting that?
Okay, if we have no other business, we'll move on to the agenda. Page 76, 11.1, storage of council's permanent records with Queensland State Archives for preservation. Okay. Do we have another one?
Yeah. Page 4.
Oh, page 4.
They're the old ones that were shredded, Tyson.
Oh, right, okay. Well, then I'll be reusing them then. No, I've got, I should have. Maybe. Okay, well, it's still the same title, 11.1, Storage of Council Permanent Records with Queensland State Archives Preservation. I've got a question on this one. To the Director, welcome. If we allow our records to go to the state archives for storage. Where is it in Brisbane, and is it well protected from a large flood in Brisbane? Or is it in Brisbane, or we'd have to get that information?
Look, it is located in Brisbane, but the exact location, I can check for you. It is very secure. It's there for a purpose, to preserve all the records. It won't just be ours, it's across Queensland.
Well, I move we lay this on the table till later in the meeting to get more information about where the records are kept. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, so what is the next page number, please? 21. Okay, page 21, application for funding under Queensland Government 2021-22 Cycle Network Local Government Grants Program. Okay, Councillor McMahon.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that Council 1 apply for funding for the Miss Campbell and Queen Street intersection Roma cycleway upgrade under the Queensland Government 2021-22 Cycle Network Local Government Grants Program to allocate the required 50% co-contribution in the 2021-22 budget if successful. 3, authorise the CEO or delegate to sign funding agreement if successful.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Councillor Hancock? Yeah, please go ahead.
With David, Littleproud, the other day on the wireless, David Littleproud was advertised at saying that he'd got 800,000 for the Miss Campbell Street intersection. So where do we come into that? I just saw, you know what I mean, that money had been allocated for that intersection anyway.
I'd just like to, I think other people would know that it's for Miss Campbell and Warwick, Carnarvon Highway. It's a fair TMR job. This one's up on Queen Street. I need a big water tank, you know, Queen and Miss Campbell.
And I think that money also would help with probably upgrade of Carnarvon Highway too, Deputy Mayor, is that correct?
Yeah, fairly big job there, Mayor, where there was a tragedy in the floods, yeah.
Deputy Director, do you have anything to add on that one?
Not really, Mr Mayor, that it's exactly right. This is a separate site, just a bit further, but if we were successful with this program, along with the TMR program, that'd be a very good cycleway link all the way through there into the schools, links the north-eastern side of town into the schools, and then back into the CBD to the roundabout along Queen Street. So, yeah, the jobs are complementary.
And just on that, do we record the amount of bicycle movements? Is that part of what you'll do in your application? Does that make a difference, or?
Yeah, it's a requirement of the application process, Mr Mayor, pedestrian, vehicle and bicycle movements to support the application. So.
Okay, so we had a mover, did we have a seconder?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Okay, then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, item 12.2, Roma Natural Gas Supply Agreement Renewal. I've got a question to Manager Graham. With this, does this, obviously this area for gas that would be part of the industrial gas area, does it go out to, like on the map it's fairly small here, but does it go out to the Surat Road turn off and then across, or have we just got it going along, you know, the entrance going out to the sawmill and so forth?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the current reticulation just goes up to the entrance to the sawmill. For us to extend it to Surat Road and further would be quite expensive, and we'd really have to have a demand in that area to warrant it.
Okay, so, but the question is, if we're formulating a policy, whether we have a, you know, the question is, do we have an area in which we would consider accepting a contract arrangement if someone would you know, is there ability to have two stages? One is easy connection now, but also an area where we could look at it, which if someone's using a lot of gas, they're probably going to need quite a bit of lean too sometimes, you know. So this wouldn't really cover that policy at the moment. This is more about your connections that you could put on in this financial year.
No, this policy does cover that area as well. It just states there that that area is very remote from the reticulation, and that anybody wanting to develop there would probably have to pay a large part of the cost of getting the reticulation there. Unless they were going to be a really big user, then council could reach some sort of agreement with them and pay a contribution. But there's no reason why we couldn't extend the network that far if there was a user.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, councillors? Okay, well, I'd like to move. Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
I'm on this side again. Well, my question is, isn't this just about the sole supply? Because this has got nothing to do with the... Am I on the right page?
Oh, no, I might be on the wrong page perhaps.
Page 26.
26.
This is just about Sandoz being the
Oh,
sole
yes,
supply.
yeah, okay.
Because when you're talking
Yeah,
about...
oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, good point. So I've actually asked a question for later, so sorry about that, Graham, but I know the answer anyway. Okay, any more questions on this one? Did anyone wish to move on this one? Please go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that one, council resolve that Sandoz QNT be classified as a sole supplier under section 235 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 for the supply of natural gas to Roma, and two, authorise the Chief's Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into negotiations with Sandoz QNT for the supply of natural gas to Roma, formalising the terms and conditions of the agreement.
Okay, we've got a second to Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? I'll speak. So this is something that's very important to bring affordable gas to our reticulation system in Roma, which is an historical system. And the more people that we get on using the gas, the more it subsidises residential customers using gas. So it's in council's interest to look for a long-term supply continuity, and certainly we'll be supporting these initiatives. Okay, would anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, page 35. Item 12.3, tender 21018, relining sewers in Injune and Surat 2020/2021 tender award. Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Graham, just one question. There's no local business that can do this job, is there? Thank you.
I would have a question, but I'm just wondering whether we should be doing it enclosed.
Probably just check with the CEO, but it's probably a generic question about what sort of thing we look at for generic scoring. Not looking at the individual, but how we actually do personal scoring. Is that where the question was headed?
Yeah, it was probably more about performance of individual. Maybe. I move to lay this on the table till later in the meeting. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to page 41.
Just on that last one, Mayor, is that you're asking that to lay on the table because you've got more questions you're going to ask offline?
No, more, I didn't want to disturb the flow of the meeting, so if we push it till later in the meeting, it may be something we go into closed. Item 12.4, May Street Bridge, Wallumbilla. Do we have any questions? I've got a question to the Deputy Director. With this one here, obviously we're talking to everyone about this. One of the questions is, have we looked at costings if we did provide some connectivity there, maybe not at the height that it was before?
Mr Mayor, the recommendations obviously to replace the existing bridge, but if council wanted to consider a third costing to look at connectivity at the current location, but not the Main Street Bridge itself, it's something that we could look into. So the background behind the resolution, councillors, I know there's obviously a push to open Main Street Bridge, or there's some interest in trying to open Main Street Bridge. I've had a look at some preliminary costings on it. I just didn't want to commit a lot of time if there wasn't an interest in it, but it's obviously a fairly substantial structure, so there is a reasonable cost in it. The second part of the recommendation was, I think we could actually achieve a very high level of wet weather immunity along Blue Hills and still have quite the money left over compared to if we went with the Main Street Bridge. It would benefit all the people along Blue Hills Road section then, as well as potentially the people to the south that can't get through the low invert there at Wallumbilla South. But as I said, if you want to look at an alternative crossing at the Main Street Bridge or within close vicinity of it, we can. But the whole inquiry to council initially was to do with wet weather immunity and when it was flooding. So I'm just not sure whether it's not so much whether they can get across there. It used to be able to be crossed when the Wallumbilla South Road was closed. So if we go with a low level crossing at the current Main Street Bridge site, it's likely to provide the same outcome as the current Wallumbilla South, and it would be cut anyway. So there's a potential, there's a lot of work to go into that bridge for vehicular traffic. There is a potential to look at if it wants to be open just purely for pedestrian traffic. Obviously pedestrian loads are a lot lighter than any sort of light heavy vehicle. So if there was an interest in that, it could be looked at to getting a deck to a pedestrian standard. I don't know what that looks like, how much that is, but if that's where the question's coming from, it is an option there too.
Okay, well first Councillor McMullen, then Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, Deputy Director Cam, the proposal or the upgrade of the section of Blue Hills Road is to make it all weather from there back to Piccadilly, is that the correction?
Correct, yep. So the original request come in to say that when the Wallumbilla Creek is up, the residents south of Wallumbilla can't obviously get out onto the highway. So I had a look at what options. The issue with Blue Hills is there's 3 low-level crossings there. The water obviously comes through under the railway line. If we're trying to provide improved access during wet weather, it'd be very highly likely that them 3 crossings will be cut at the same time as well. So it would be putting in probably 3 culvert structures along Blue Hills and gravelling it so that it could be trafficked after 50, 100 mil of rain, and that, because the whole inquiry, as I said initially, was around providing road access during times when the Wallumbilla Creek was up. So,
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Thanks, Cameron. I can't get this thing to work, but if that option was proven to be the better financial option, that would benefit a lot more people. Won't work.
Because other people have got theirs on.
We just need to give it a bit of time to click in.
Keep dropping out. Now it's working, but no light. I'm sorry. Yeah, Deputy Director, that would give a lot more people access. There's quite a few small blocks along that section of road, isn't there, that would be looking to get out as well.
yeah, correct, Deputy Mayor, and that's exactly probably why I think we look just greater than the Main Street Bridge, because I suppose I look at things, and if we are going to spend $1, how can we make sure that that dollar is benefiting the absolute maximum people? The obvious elephant in the room for the people south of Wallumbilla would be, rather than just going around the Main Street Bridge, there's probably an extra 6 or 7K that they would have to go. But as you rightly said, the trade-off of that is it benefits all the people along that Blue Hills Road, which has been highly developed with residential houses over the last sort of 5 years or so.
Yeah, Deputy Director Cam, I don't really know this bridge, but so what's it made of? Is it is it of historical? Is it of historical value? I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I'm just wondering about that.
Yeah, Councillor Edwards, the bridge is a timber bridge. It was closed 6-7 years ago now because of the condition. Had deteriorated to a point where it was no longer safe to traffic, both through with vehicles and pedestrians. There is holes in the decking board. Of our 3 timber bridges, Riggers Road, Muggins Lane and Main Street, it's probably of the poorer condition of all 3. But it is a big bridge. It's higher than the Warrego Highway crossing, and it spans a lot. There's the figure to replace it would exceed $1 million easily without doing any further investigation on it. So it is a big spanning bridge. In terms of historic value, the Maranoa Regional Council only has 3 timber bridges left, so I'm not sure specifically is there local historical value, but when you start getting down to 3 timber bridges left in the region, that in itself brings some sort of attachment to the history of it. So.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
Mayor, I'm happy to move.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I move that Council endorse the preparation of a preliminary estimate of costs into the 2 options regarding the May Street Bridge, including 1, replacement of the May Street Bridge, and 2, upgrade the section of Blue Hills Road, Old Roma Road, from Wallumbilla South Road to Piccadilly, with a focus on improving the wet weather immunity.
Councillor O'Neill, would you be interested in adding that we write to all the residents that are on these roads that are in that area and ask them, once we've got options, what they would like to do and their options?
Yeah, I have no problem in us consulting, but I'm happy to get advice from the Deputy Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, could I suggest, Council, that we undertake this step first? I'll bring it back to the table, and then that way we can authorise the extent of the consultation, just just in case, as I said, I would have a concern going out to the community if we're looking $3-4 million if I brought it to this table and there's absolutely no interest in it. But I still think we can definitely do the consultation step, but that's only my advice to it.
To Councillor O'Neill, the other thing would you be interested in putting in there that we look at low-level travel across that if that bridge wasn't there, or would you not be interested in that as part of an amendment?
Now, I'm happy to include a third point that we investigate what a low-level crossing would cost.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, low-level crossing, vehicle and pedestrian, or would it be just pedestrian?
I'd have vehicle and pedestrian.
Yep, noted.
But it's up to the mover.
No, that's how I took it.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition?
Sorry,
Does anyone
can
wish to speak to it?
Yeah, that is correct.
And is the seconder happy with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so if no one else wishes to speak, we're going to go to the vote.
I haven't been asked.
Oh, please go ahead, Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I wholeheartedly support us investigating what the cost would be to replace the bridge. I equally support very strongly that we look at what it would cost to do the works on Blue Hills Road or Old Rome Road. As many of the residents know, I know that this is a topic that many councillors have had approaches from locals and people very interested in the Wallumbilla area, particularly on the southern side of Wallumbilla. So I think this is the right way forward, and it shows that council's doing the due diligence by understanding what the cost would be before we make a decision of where we invest the money.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? If not, we're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just tidy up?
This wording a little bit, that council endorsed the preparation of a preliminary estimate of costs for the following items, including replacement, upgrade and low-level crossing.
So is the mover and the second happy with that?
Just make sure we've got the intent right before we go on. Thanks.
.5 Restoration and reopening of Riggers Road Bridge, Roma. Councillor Hancock.
I'd like to move that Council 1, pursuant to Section 235 of the Local Government Regulations 2012, enter into a contractual arrangement with Timber Restoration Systems Pty Ltd for the restoration and reopening of Riggers Road Bridge, Roma, as per quotation Q896. 2, authorise as part of the reopening scope, A, the installation of an information board outlining the history of the Riggers Road Bridge, including the works undertaken by then Roma Town Council, alongside Australian Defence Force personnel, and B, the installation of additional wayfinding signage to the Arthur Street car park to assist towed vehicles navigate to a suitable parking spot when wanting to access the Roma CBD.
Okay, Councillor Hancock, I'm wondering whether you would be willing for an amendment that we could also request any previous employees slash councillors to give some information on that bridge for the sign, if you'd be willing to add that to the recommendation.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't have a problem with consulting the community to get the information, but I would have assumed that's what the officers would have done. Do you have a plan on doing that, Deputy Director Cam?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I have done a fair bit of investigation with the Roma Historical Association through the group there. They've put me in touch with the previous Roma Town Council overseer, and I've got some notes already that I would picture that they would make a really good information board where you've got the actual handwritten notes from 1987 could be on there as to what they did and that. But yeah, I probably would, but it's just up to council whether they want to formally require us to do it. But for the informational signage, it's not something that I can make up. It would be trying to see these artefacts from these people. But if council want to put it in there, there's no issue.
Councillor Hancock, what I was suggesting was, for instance, the mayor at the time that was involved with the army restoration of the bridge, did he have any comments or interesting stories that could go with what obviously the overseer knew? Because it was a big thing at the time. So to me it would enhance it, but it's up to you as the mover.
I don't have a problem, Mr Mayor. As you know, I support community consultation 100%. My concern is, and I'm happy if you'd like to give me some wording, I would hate to name people and then miss the opportunity of people that comes across our path that we could have went and consulted with. That's my only concern is I don't want to narrow the scope. I want to actually keep it open so that the officers can actually seek the information from who they need to get the information from. But if you've got some wording of specific people that you would like to include.
Well, yeah. Please go ahead, CEO.
I've just, yeah,
Yeah, so one person I'd like, suggest would be the mayor at the time, whoever that was, to ask, was there any extra stories or interesting, so we've got sort of obviously operational, we know the officers have talked to probably operational staff, but also, and maybe the town clerk at the time, if available still. Because it was a pretty big thing in the community of Roma when the army rebuilt that bridge. Councillor,
just a suggestion, and before we get too far away, Mayor, you need a mover and a second, and then you can amend it. So you need the second first. But would you put, e.g., key stakeholders of the day, and that would include the mayor or the clerk, and there could be others that, but at least you're not. The staff will address what's in there. And if it just says mayor and clerk, well, they won't go any further than that. But if it's key stakeholders, that would include them, you might capture it.
Yeah, yes, as long as we understand that's what I'm talking about. Obviously, community consultation probably happens anyway, that other people have stories or Roma family history, but that's, I'm happy to second that. As long as we understand that's what it is. Any other comments, councillors?
No, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to read that point out because it hasn't been read out. So I'm happy to amend and add in point 3, note the research already undertaken and planned in conjunction with those who have historical information about the matter. For example, key stakeholders of the day.
Okay. Does anybody else, any opposition to the motion? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Please go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
I'd just like to say that this is a really good thing to get the traffic to go back into town from the big rig. I know a lot of people have been asking for it for a long time, so really good to see that it's happening and it's under budget as well.
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I too want to just back up what Councillor Taylor said. I think this is a fantastic project for the Roma region. I think that it brings our tourists back up there. It's a link to our main street, and I'm just really, really happy to see this is made budget and also coming under budget. So thanks to the staff and their hard work.
Okay, and I'll speak to the motion as well. I've certainly been pushing for this for quite a long time, and I'm very happy that it seems to be moving in the right direction. I was out at the big rig one day when a husband and wife were having a disagreement because their caravan was sort of stuck, and I believe that this will give a better experience when people come to the Maranoa. So the opportunity to tell the history of that bridge and also have it being used again is great. Great story in the Maranoa. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion or against? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, 12.6, additional pedestrian crossing proposal, Wyndham Street, Roma. Councillor McMullen, I've just got a question on this one. CEO, did you say that there was a bit of clarification needed on conflicts with this one? Is this the one?
You'll have to turn them off whoever's got them on.
Yes, councillors. So the suggestion was that if someone wanted to declare an interest, that they raise that they have a personal interest, and then we'll step through what they would like to declare.
Okay, well, on this one here, I'd like to declare that we have a business.
Sorry.
Oh,
This is going to be tricky, councillors, but
right,
let's give it a go.
Well, I've got a personal interest, perhaps.
Yeah, personal interest. So the agenda item is
12.
Yeah, so 12.6, an additional pedestrian crossing proposal, Wyndham Street, Roma, just so we've got clarity about the item. The councillor's name, so Councillor Tyson Bolter.
Yep, correct.
Who will benefit? So is it self or someone else?
I don't think anyone would benefit, but because it's, yeah.
But like, the question is who might have a personal interest in the matter? Is it yourself or someone else?
I think it's too far away to have a personal interest, me or someone else, but I just want to declare it.
Well, no, if something is declared, we need certain information. So if it's declared, we need to know the who and the what. And this is where we've been struggling the last meetings, is because we haven't captured the right information on the way through. So if there is a declaration to be made, we need to know the who has a personal interest in it, whether it's the councillors themselves or depending on whether it's prescribed or declarable, whether it's a close associate or a related party. So that's why the first step is the who. So in this particular case, I think what you're trying to say is that you have a business.
Yeah.
You operate a business?
Yeah, operate a business in the main street.
So it's yourself?
Correct. And which is in the CBD of town, and this is in the CBD, which it's a different part of the CBD, but yeah, it's in the CBD.
So it's yourself, and you have a business in the CBD, and how will you benefit from this particular matter?
I don't think there is any benefit. I can't. Yeah, it's too far away to benefit or lose out of it. I couldn't, but that's just my view.
So what you're saying is there is no personal interest in the matter?
No, but, you know, we've got different rules when it comes to declaring, so abundance of caution. Just declaring.
All right, let me ask the question then. Are you intending to leave the meeting during the discussion and voting on the matter, or are you seeking to stay? Just yes or no? Are you intending to leave the meeting during the discussion and voting on the matter? Or are you seeking to stay?
Yeah, well, I'll probably in this time seek to stay.
Okay. So in cases where they're seeking to stay, then council decides.
Right, so someone has to vote on that, and I won't be involved, so Yeah. Deputy Mayor, should you take over for this one?
I've got Councillor Taylor willing to.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay. I believe that it is in the public interest that Mayor Golder participates and votes on agenda item 12.6 because a reasonable person would trust that the final decision was made in the public interest.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Councillor McMullen? Anybody against?
I just have a question.
Please go ahead.
Mr Mayor, I just wonder, sometimes you choose, whether it's a CBD thing, sometimes you declare the interest and you hop out, and sometimes you're staying in and it's a CBD thing, and I don't have a problem either way. I just, because I have to vote now, I'm just seeking, is there a difference between this time when you are choosing to ask us to vote on it, to stay in for the CBD, but other times you hop out when it's a CBD? I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, so basically the view is if I could stay in the room and it wasn't, where I could win or lose out of it close to the business, I would always get out anyway because I would have no involvement with that. But when this is in a remote part of the CBD, that's why, I am concerned that I'm not representing the people by at least trying to stay in the room if it's got no benefit or loss. So that's why I'm handing it over to council to make the decision. Okay, so we had a seconder. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? Go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? So that's 7-1.
So, Mr Mayor, are you happy that it has business in the CBD but is some distance away, is what you're declaring?
Yeah. I'd probably say quite a distance away.
Significant.
Or significant.
Away from what? I guess, away from your interest
Yeah,
or away from
distance? Yeah, the business that we run, or family business. Yeah, from the crossing, yeah, because we're talking about an extra pedestrian crossing, or a crossing. Okay, do we have any other? Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
I have, Councillor Mark Edwards, I have a personal interest.
It's the...
It's okay.
Mayor, is your microphone on?
No, it's off. I turned it off.
Okay, I think
on the back. Okay, so Councillor Edwards, can you describe so we're assuming it's the same agenda item, same agenda description. The councillor who has a personal interest is Councillor Edwards, and the particulars of the interest.
The particulars of the interest would be that my employer leases a business, leases a shop in the vicinity of the Wyndham Street crossing.
You're suggesting that there could be an additional benefit from traffic, pedestrian traffic?
yes, that's probably the benefit, I would say. Yes, okay, we'll go with that.
So, Mr. Mayor, is that your point as well? Like, why the declaration?
You mean, so
We just need to explain the nature of the interest. So why is there an interest in the pedestrian crossing?
well, mine was declaring out of abundance of caution, because it still is on the edge of the CBD. But Councillor Edwards has to make his own decision on that.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor.
Councillor Edwards, are you intending to leave the meeting during the discussion and voting on the matter, yes or no?
Yes, that's a yes.
CEO, are you happy if we keep going? Okay. Is there any other declarations of conflict of interest with this item? Councillor Ladbrook, did you want to say anything?
I just didn't think that a pedestrian crossing in Wyndham Street would be any benefit or anything to do with a street or two. Yeah, I just didn't think that a pedestrian crossing. I just didn't. Business in the CBD in Arthur Street, and I just didn't think that a pedestrian crossing a fair distance from my shop would have anything to do with my shop. It's not going to make any difference to my turnover or anything. There you go.
The only thing is there an abundance of caution that you do declare it and let councillors decide.
Okay.
That's up to you. You've got to decide that. But
Yeah, I think the confusion, Mr. Mayor, has come about because of some declarations that were made at the last meeting. I think that just, if I can offer any comment, and this is not legal advice, but it was a different scenario last meeting because we're talking about the Arthur Street car park, which is in the precinct of Councillor Ladbrook's business. But when we start talking about Wyndham Street, which is it's even further distance away, it's hard to see how there's any sort of personal interest in that.
Just further to the CEO's point there was two reports there. There was something to do with the CBD as well, and I think the key point was proximity, Mr. Mayor. There was probably businesses a lot closer to that other block we discussed last meeting than what we're talking here today. So.
Yeah, I just thought with that, with the Arthur Street car park, that's only 3 or 4 blocks away, which is completely different to a pedestrian crossing.
So that's up to yourself, what you wish to do. So if you don't wish to do anything, that's up to you. Councillor Guthrie?
Mr Mayor, I'm just
looking at the managing conflicts of interest that's come from the department. And here it says it will be a declarable conflict of interest where a reasonable person might think that you could be biased. And underneath it says unsure, which usually means that you should declare the interest. So you need to err on the side of caution. If there's any suspicion that a reasonable person might think that you've actually got a benefit. And that's on the cheat sheet from the department.
So, Councillor Ladbroke, what's your decision today?
I just don't think a pedestrian crossing in Wyndham Street has any advantage or disadvantage to me at all.
Okay. So you're happy we just keep going then?
Yep. Yes.
Right. Okay, so we're back to 12.7. Does 12.6, or on to the next one. Page 52. The additional pedestrian crossing proposal, Wyndham Street, Roma. And yeah, Councillor Edwards is going to leave the room now. Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council allocate $2,500 to draft a concept plan for a mid-block pedestrian crossing on Wyndham Street, Roma, with the design to be used to establish a quantify the potential impact such installation could have on the street car parking at this location.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Taylor.
I'd just like to say that the reason I brought this to council was because of the elderly trying to cross the road. So it would be good just to see, I don't know about the car park, but just see how we go with it anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to support those comments too and say that I've had feedback and it's very important we keep all the residents safe as they're going around doing their business. Okay, if no one else wishes to speak, Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I just want to thank Councillor Taylor for bringing this back onto the agenda. A power of work has been done over the last nearly decade on upgrading the CBD of Roma, and the Wyndham Street crossing was always one that was in the mixing pot, and I'm sure Deputy Director Cam will be happy that some of the conceptual work has already been done from previous councils, and I think if we get to the point where an investment could be made and there isn't a huge impact on car parks in Wyndham Street, that this would be a welcome addition to the CBD of Roma.
Okay, if no one else wishes to speak, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, page 58, 12.7, design estimate for reinforced concrete box culvert, Gunnewin West Road. I would like to move that council receive and note the contents of the report. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Request to host Queensland Symphony Orchestra live stream the Firebird. Welcome, Manager Ed. I've got a question on this. Does council have the ability to change the ticket price?
Yes, Councillor, that's council's decision to either agree or not. No, I just want to point out that unlike most performances that Jelly promotes, council would provide a contribution, a financial contribution, $5,000 or whatever. In this particular case, Jelly is running the whole.
That's the wrong one, mate. We're on page 64. It's free of charge.
Yeah.
I was going to say how much more.
So we're into the live stream.
We're at the Queensland Symphony.
Sorry, that was the wrong question.
What's going on at that end?
Yes. Okay, so this one is free, which is fantastic, but that's a question for the next report. Manager? Okay, so anybody got any questions on this? Okay. Does anyone wish to move on this one? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 accept the proposal from the Queensland Symphony Orchestra to live stream Firebird as a free community event. 2, provide the big screen at the Big Rig on Saturday the 20th of March at 7:30pm as in-kind sponsorship. And 3, authorise the CEO to sign the agreement on behalf of Maranoa Regional Council.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Yes, I will. In the absence of one of my former colleagues not being here in the gallery today, former councillor Putty Chandler, I just want to say that this is a great addition to what the Big Rig can offer. The reason the investment occurred into the big screen at the Big Rig was so that it could be used for many different events, and I think it's a wonderful event to be included in the calendar of the Maranoa, and I hope that it is incredibly well attended and that people see the benefit of the investment that's been made and championed by former councillor Chandler into the big screen at the Big Rig.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. 13.2, Margaret Fulton, the musical, performance in Roma, Saturday 24th of April 2021. And yeah, now I can ask the question I should have asked this time, sorry, Manager. Yeah, so you gave us an answer that we can change it, but we're not funding any of it, is that correct?
Thank you for the question on notice, Mr Mayor, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's correct. Look, and sort of note too that the event is proposed to be held on the 24th of April, which is a long weekend, so that's not probably helping either. I'd like to also point out that they have proposed this pricing, and it's typical of the pricing that they have across 80 performances of this particular thing across Australia. They are making the investment in total themselves. There is ticket revenue, obviously, and a portion of that goes to the Performing Arts Group, and then I think 70% of that, the rest of it goes to Jelly Entertainment. The risk is entirely theirs. That's the point I'm trying to make. The council has no skin in the game in terms of finances other than in-kind, which they're asking for, and a couple of our staff would probably provide front of house support on the night. Yeah.
And another question, do you think that children could go to this, or it's an adult-only show?
That's a good question, and I'd have to find out the answer to that, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I'm willing to move that council accepts the proposal from Jelly Entertainment to perform Margaret Fulton musical. 2, provide the Roma Auditorium on Saturday 24th of April 2021 as in-kind sponsorship. Agree to the proposed ticket pricing of $45 for adults, $42 for concession, groups of 10 plus $40. Point 4,
negotiate with Jelly Entertainment, if appropriate, for a reduced ticket price for children or families. And number 5, authorise the CEO to sign the agreement on behalf of Maranoa Regional Council. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. And does anyone oppose the motion? Please go ahead.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, we're going to have to change point 3 because that's, did you say agree to the proposed ticket price?
Yeah, but we're sort of asking for an extra category for children, unless they consider concessions children.
So could you just have a look at what's on the screen and see whether that's what you intended?
And families, if acceptable. We probably should put, so it's not going to hold the motion up. Yeah, but at the end, if acceptable. Okay, Councillor Edwards, are you happy with point 4, which is the change?
Yes.
So just,
For those viewing the video, point 4, negotiate with Jelly Entertainment for reduced ticket price for children and families if acceptable.
Okay, so we've got a mover and a second. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Certainly believe in any entertainment in the Maranoa coming is well received, and Margaret Fulton, the musical, well, Margaret Fulton, as we all know, is an absolute legend. So it'll be interesting to have this playing in the Maranoa, and if we can make it as affordable as we can, it can be beneficial for more people to come along. Does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go.
sorry, who seconded?
Sure.
Councillor Edwards seconded.
Yeah. Councillor Edwards. Okay. Righto, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 13.3, Charlotte's Web, performance in Roma, Saturday 24th July 2021. Councillor Burkett.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that Council 1 accept the proposal from the AR Tour to perform Charlotte's Web. 2, provide the Roma Auditorium on Saturday the 24th of July 2021 as in-kind sponsorship. 3, allocate the $2,500 plus GST from the Arts and Cultural Budget, GL 2885.2001.2001, and 4, authorise the CEO to sign the agreement on behalf of Maranoa Regional Council.
Okay, we have a seconder. Well, I think it went up first, Councillor Hancock. And do we have any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Burkett.
I'm probably not familiar with the other 2 before this one, but Charlotte's Web, I think we all grew up with Charlotte's Web, so I think it's great to bring that to the Maranoa, and hopefully a lot of families come and support it.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 13.4, request for Outback Air Race. Councillor Edwards.
Councillor Edwards, I might have a personal interest.
This is taking multitasking to the new level, sorry. Okay, so we've got the agenda number, description, the councillor name. So who will benefit? Yourself, Councillor Edwards, or who has the personal interest? Yourself. And could you describe the particulars of the interest, please?
The Roma Aero Club may have the interest, and my interest in the Roma Aero Club would be that I'm a member of the Roma Aero Club, and I am aware that I'm just a member. I'm not on the executive.
Okay. So, councillors, we might just quote section 150EO, which is 1B1, that, oh no, that's not it. Sorry, 2, the councillor is a member or patron of a community group, sporting club or similar organisations not appointed as an executive officer of the organisation, therefore no declarable conflict of interest arises. So we'll just make a note to that effect, if council's happy with that.
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Okay. On 13.4, request for Outback Air Race. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 approve use of the Roma Yards facility for the Outback Air Race conveners to host a dinner on Wednesday the 9th of September in compliance with the following conditions. A formal hire agreement for the Roma Yards is completed and received. All conditions of the hire agreement are adhered to by the Outback Air Race conveners and attendees. An indemnity form is completed by all attendees entering the Roma Yards grounds. 2, approve the waiving of airport charges up to the value of $1,000, excluding GST, for the aircraft involved in the air pilgrimage. And 3, request Maranoa Regional Council be recognised as a supporter of the Outback Air Race. 4, authorise the manager airports to use airport resources to support the event, i.e. security, operations staff, line marking, paint, etc. as required. 5, authorise the manager airports to negotiate with the Department of Home Affairs to create a special event zone for the public to enter the airfield and view the aircraft if the conveners wish to pursue this. And 6, authorise expenditure from the airport operations budget to undertake grounds work to support parking and pedestrian safety if required.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? We have a question. Councillor Edwards.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to ask Councillor O'Neill, should there be something in there to authorise the manager to also harness the say the Roma Aero Club, or so, probably the Roma Aero Club would be the only one to assist on the day as well, as far as it says airports at number 4 to use airport resources. So do you think that would cover it, or do you think we should put something in there, something additional to that?
So, Mayor, is there a seconder for this motion?
Oh, sorry. Well, we're just going to that. Would anyone, I'm happy to second the motion. So please go ahead, Councillor O'Neill.
Back to Councillor Edwards probably. Councillor Edwards, you're proposing that probably number 7, that Council authorise the manager of airports to work with stakeholders of the airport precinct to make this event a success.
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor O'Neill.
Councillor Hancock.
Just had a question, I guess, and especially since we're adding that in. I noticed that Manager Ben's here today, but it's not in the report, so I'd just like to ask whether you have anything you'd like to inform us about this, or if there's any problems or anything you'd like to tell us about this, and I guess in regards to item number 7 of the resolution that's just been put forward.
Thanks, Councillor Hancock. Thank you, Councillor Hancock. I was a co-author of the report, so fairly across what's contained in it. I have no problems with adding item 7 in. It's probably just worth noting that, to your point, Councillor Edwards, I have no control over other bodies being involved, especially if they're volunteer groups. But quite happy to work with everyone to make it a success.
Thank you, Manager Ben. I just noticed from a previous event that was held some years ago that we were involved quite a lot, and I think it just gives having it in there would give some credibility or something to the volunteers that are actually working in this space.
Yeah, and just on that, I think that was probably volunteers working with other volunteers rather than necessarily with council. So, okay, so we've got a mover and a second. Do we have any? Councillor McMullen.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I know it says a formal hire agreement for the Roma Sailor is completed and received. Does that include a agreement with the lessee of the canteen facility at the moment? Do people have the canteen at least at the moment?
Okay. No. So you want to get that information? Does do you know?
I can give the Sally Arts Manager a report.
I know, it's in the report that they're actually doing the catering.
Righto. So the current contractors are doing the catering. Yep. Yeah, please go ahead.
My question was the formal hire agreement for the Roma Sailor. Where's that come into the picture? Like with who's doing how we're getting a formal agreement?
Okay, well, we'd probably need someone to get a question on notice, and so I move that we lay this on the table till later in the meeting for more information. All those in favour? All those against? That's 8-1. If I can call for a division. (13.5) Letter of support request. Welcome, Manager Tanya. Okay, do we have any questions on this? If not, do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy
to move Council 1, grant permission for the proposed upgrades to Studio 6 at the Roma Community Arts Centre, and 2, endorse the letter of support from the Mayor on behalf of the Council to the requesting organisation for their grant application to refurbish the Council's facility.
We have a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to 13.6, post-event report, Australia Day 2021. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that 1, Council receive and note the officer's report as presented, and 2, that a briefing be undertaken with Council to review and continue to improve the event.
We have a seconder, Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to firstly pass on my thanks to the staff that are involved with the Australia Day ceremonies this year, particularly Roma. That was the one that I was involved in. I think it's always important for us as councillors in the roles that we play on Australia Day to reflect with the staff on how we can continue to improve the running of the events and the flow of the events. And I think it would be incredibly worthwhile to continue what we've done in the past in having a briefing session with everyone involved, so we can make the next one in 2022 even better.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Then we're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to late open. L1, council representatives for external committees. I'd like to move that council approve Councillor McMullen be appointed and attend meetings for the remainder of council term for the Southwest Resource Recoveries Group /DES, LGAQ and Southwest Waste Reference Group meeting. 2, approve Councillor Guthrie be appointed and attending for the remainder of council's term for the Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee. Do we have a seconder?
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
I'm just wondering, why we haven't sort of discussed this and seeing if anybody else would like the job. Like, I don't have a problem with either of them, but wouldn't we ask the room?
Well, this is how we're going to do it, because if it gets up, then
But you've already named them.
yeah, but at one point we have to make a decision, so we have to put names up and see if they're supported.
But couldn't we have a discussion before the names went up?
It could, but I believe that we need to do this, so these meetings are going, so if council are not happy with these names, then the motion will not be
I'm
successful.
not saying I'm not happy, I'm just saying I would like to have a conversation to see if anybody else wanted to put their hand up as well.
Okay, so, and this is one of the ways that we're doing this, is to put this motion up, so let's see if the motion is successful, and yeah, and then we can put up other names. Okay, do we have a second for that motion?
I've got a question. Yeah, that's.
Oh, Councillor Edwards seconded, but please go ahead with questions. Councillor O'Neill and then Councillor Hancock.
I'd just like you, Mayor, to take us through what the Southwest Resource Recovery Group is /DES, what the LGAQ is referencing, and what the Southwest Waste Reference Group is.
They are groups that, for instance, Councillor McMullen has done in the last term, and this would be that continuing. And as far as the QDOG is meetings to do with the Dog Wash Committee, which I think mainly are done online.
So just to follow up, I understand what the Dog Watch Committee is. That wasn't what I was speaking about. It's could you explain to the meeting what the Southwest Resource Recovery Group /DES is?
Yeah, I'm certainly able. I'll ask, defer to Councillor McMullen. He's got a vast knowledge on that department. So would you mind answering that, Councillor McMullen?
Yeah, this was the group that I was the council instigator in getting this group going in the last term, and I've been right through every meeting and that we've had so far.
And then what is the LGAQ referencing then?
Councillor McMullen, do you want to answer that as far as, is that one of the instigators of that group?
No, the LGAQ wasn't the instigator of the group, no, that was introduced, by myself from Maranoa Regional Council and 5 other delegates from 5 other councils with the DES. I'm just not sure without checking out where the LGAQ came in. They do get involved in the group when they're called through the DES. They have been involved several times. We've had meetings with them. They've come out and met with us at the face and things like that, yes.
So, Mayor, this might clarify better. Is this one group? Or is this Councillor McMullen will be representing council on the Southwest Resource Recovery Group DES? then LGAQ, and then the Southwest Region Reference Group meeting? Or is that one meeting? Is that one entity?
This was two entities, I think, from memory. Yeah, the Southwest Waste Reference Group meeting is a part of it in conjunction, yeah.
With LGAQ?
No, I can't, I think the LGAQ might be mistaken. I know they've been involved with it, but I don't think they're part of the group, no, of the meetings.
Well, then that would have to be removed from the resolution then. If it's just two, you're a representative on being proposed, the Southwest Resource Recovery Group, number one, and the Southwest Waste Reference Group, number two.
I also understand, and I'm happy to adjust it, and it was to do with any waste matters that LGAQ come out and deal with. So some of these things get very fuzzy on how they are. So I would take that as being everything to do with resource recovery. Is that correct, Councillor McMullen?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr Mayor. The LGAQ have been involved on two meetings, I think, just from memory, yeah.
So, Councillor McMullen, Councillor O'Neill, if there was a resource recovery LGAQ, you know, they have many tentacles, and if they came out to talk about waste, then Councillor McMullen would be authorised to go. Councillor Hancock.
Thanks. Mr Mayor, I'm just wondering then, for clarity, because I just assumed that it was everything to do with LGAQ as well, so I just wonder whether we need to put in there LGAQ regarding waste management or...
Yeah, I'm happy to put that in there for clarity. Yeah.
So that was what my question was too. I wasn't sure about the different groups. The other question I've got is, I do understand that even up until now, both Councillor McMullen and Councillor Guthrie have been going to meetings and being involved in these groups. How do we as councillors find out what's happening in these groups? There's no reporting mechanism back, so we don't, like, how are we going to address that in the future so that we actually know as a council what's happening at these meetings? So
I'm certainly happy if council would like to get that information, copy of the minutes be sent to all councillors. Deputy Mayor, what's your view on that, and Councillor Guthrie?
I'm happy to say that when I attend the meetings, I take the minutes. There's never really been minutes. There's a lot of discussions that take part, and often Councillor McMullen and I have been going to the dog watch committees, and I've been taking minutes, so I've got minutes of every meeting I've attended, but there's not actually minutes that they go through and endorse. It's more discussion with all the relevant stakeholders, but I'm happy to share that. Happy to share, Mr Mayor, as long as we've got some sort of forum to share.
Or did you?
I'm happy to photocopy the minutes that I've taken, but they're...
Send them to councillors, all councillors, would you be happy with that?
Yeah, happy to.
And Councillor McMullen?
Yours is dodgy. Take this one.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, and I think that in this term of council, there's only been one waste recovery meeting, and it was just done a quick phone hook up there, but certainly minutes can be arranged from those meetings, yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just
please, Councillor Henke.
That'd be great, and I understand, these short notes, they're fine. It's about the conversation. It's about what you've learned and what you've heard and what might be coming, what opportunities out there are for the Maranoa. So I just think there's something that we probably need to address as a council is when do we get to actually share this information together? Maybe it is just part of our councillor catch-up so that we can actually share that information, because sometimes you can just read minutes, but it would be nice to know some of the discussion points behind the minutes and how they got to that decision so that we're fully informed as council as well.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'm just with councillor Hancock. I just think I don't need to read minutes either. I would just prefer to have the conversation and just let us know what's going on. As you said, councillor, you know, maybe it is in our council catch-up. Maybe we need, instead of half an hour, we might need an hour sometimes. But I just feel that, you know, we're just not getting the information, and because we don't have portfolios, we sort of have to be across everything now. So we just like the information so we can share.
Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder, any opposition?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I have tidied up the wording a little bit, so for the benefit of the community, could we read that out? Whoever was the mover then?
So I move that authorise Councillor McMullen to attend meetings for the remainder of Council's term for South West Resource Recovery Group, South West Waste Reference Group meetings, Local Government Association of Queensland LGAQ meetings in relation to waste management, Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee, that's all number 1 point. Number 2, authorise Councillor Guthrie to attend meetings for the remainder of Council's term for Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee. 3, notes or minutes of meetings as applicable to be distributed to all councillors via email and supplemented with a councillor catch-up. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, it's going to work. Mr Mayor, dot point 1, it wasn't my intention to be on the Western Queensland Dog Group, just to waste.
Yeah, I think that was
in the original, and probably it wasn't my intention. It's not in the original resolution.
No, so point 1 should not be the Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee CEO.
Yeah, just
at the top of the report, it says Executive Summary, Councillor Representative sought for Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee. So who is that?
Councillor Guthrie.
Oh, so that.
As per the.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. Thank you.
So I'd just like to take, in supplemented with Councillor catch-up, I'd like to remove that in the motion that I'm moving. But I'm happy for notes to come out, and if councillors would like to share that, but I wouldn't like to make that as a director of a motion. Okay, is the seconder happy with that?
I am.
Okay, any opposition?
so I just have a question.
Please go ahead.
So just with relation to that, so there's no requirement for councillors who go to anything externally to report back to their fellow councillors?
Yes, copies of minutes will be distributed, so all councillors will be aware of what happened at the meeting. And of course, if you'd like to ask about something, please ask that at the councillor catch up, and I'm sure councillors would be happy to pass that on. But it wouldn't be a requirement as per this motion, depending if it gets up. Okay.
So are the minutes a requirement? Are the minutes a requirement then?
Yes,
or
correct.
Yeah.
Point 3, notes or minutes of the meetings as applicable, meaning they might not even have any, to be distributed.
It could be just notes or minutes.
Yeah, could be distributed. Notes of meetings, notes or minutes of meetings to be distributed to all councillors via email. So everyone is kept up, and if you'd like to ask extra questions, please ask them when you see councillors. Okay, so that's we're going to mover and a seconder. Any opposition to the motion? Does the mover wish to speak? I certainly do. I think This is just formalising something, and this is an opportunity for all councillors to be informed about what happens, which is very important, but also still efficient running as far as what councillors have to do. Would someone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Taylor?
I actually had nothing against Councillor McMullen or Councillor Guthrie doing the job. I'm just not happy with the way this is being dealt with, and I'm really not happy with the way that we won't get any information. Well, we will get limited information, and I just don't see why we can't have conversations instead of emails.
Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I think this is another sad indication of this current council that we haven't had an opportunity collectively to discuss these particular committees. I, like Councillor Taylor, I have no problem that Councillor McMullen is going to represent council's interest on these the committees that are listed because of his passion and interest that was born from his portfolio in the previous term. Equally, I don't have a problem that Councillor Guthrie will represent council on the Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee. I just would have liked to have seen us come together as a council and discuss it, because right now I don't know if there isn't another councillor sitting here that has an interest in too being a representative of the Western Queensland Dog Watch Committee, or any of the ones that Councillor McMullen is going to represent council on. So I'm not making an informed decision on what the other councillors may or may not want to contribute to representing council. And I think that's incredibly sad that there wasn't an opportunity afforded to all of us to work as a team to come up with the best people that are interested in doing the roles. Again, I think both Councillor McMullen and Councillor Guthrie will do a wonderful job representing us. But unfortunately, I don't know if there is anyone else here that would like to do the roles as well. And as for the part in motion, and in part of the motion that was in number 3, which was an opportunity afforded to the rest of the councillors to hear verbally the outcomes of the meetings, I think that is a sad indictment on the failure of this council to be sharing information. You say, Mr Mayor, that I'll be able to ask Councillor Guthrie or Councillor McMullen if this resolution gets up questions relating to their meetings. Well, unless it's shared when those meetings are on, I won't know when to ask a question. So I think if there was an opportunity at our councillor catch-up, which is an informal catch-up, it's part of a briefing session, where we did hear from councillors that go away and represent council, then we'll be all richer for having that information. So I think it's incredibly sad that that part of the motion was removed.
Would anyone like to speak for the motion?
I just have a question.
Please go ahead.
A question for Councillor Guthrie.
You there? Yeah. I just have a question for Councillor Guthrie or Councillor McMullen. Do you think there's a need for a forum or whatever after your meetings?
Mr Mayor, I'm
happy to say that we're often on the teleconferences, they're done by teleconference, so we can spend an hour, hour and a half talking about the cents per kg for the available room meat and whether it should actually be frozen or not, and where we would source it, and we would actually have representatives who would talk for over an hour on the various locations where room meat can be sourced. So I'd have to say some of the meetings go for 2.5 hours, and as we walk away, we're walking away with these cents per kilo for room meat and the dates when training will be available and the dates when mating campaigns will be undertaken. So I'm happy to share all of that. But I will say they normally start at 6 and go till about 9 o'clock at night, and that's the topic of the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak for the motion or against the motion? Okay, well, I'll sum up then. I certainly think this is very good that point 3 is that all councillors will have the opportunity to read the minutes of the meetings if they're available. And then obviously in the councillor catch-up you can ask questions about that, which I believe is the most efficient way that we can operate. So I don't think we've lost anything. I think we've only gained with a very efficient system. it would be no difference, for instance, when councillors went to the LGAQ conference. It's the same thing, that, you know, we have situations that if there's minutes or something to come back, they can come back and people can ask questions if they wish to. Okay, so on that note, we're going to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 6-3 if I can call for a division. Okay, moving on to L2, flood mitigation, Balonne River.
Sorry, I just want to clarify that. When Councillor Renewal and I went to the LGA key conference, and I also went to the Small Museum conference, I actually did an official report back to council in the council minutes. As the councillors, we both did an official report back, so we actually reported back to council through our council minutes.
Yeah, correct. Okay, L2, flood mitigation, Balonne River, Surat. Councillor Hancock. Councillor Burkett.
I just got a question.
Yep, sure. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move that a report be brought to a future council meeting regarding removal of debris in and along the Balonne River between Fisherman's Park and the Weir. And I'm happy to speak on that when it's ready.
Okay, so you've got a question?
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I just, when I've read this, leading up to the meeting, I spoke with Les White. I just want to make sure this is not the same. Back in August, 17th of August, I got a CR number. I just want to check with Councillor Hancock it's in the same area. It was about to do with the skiing area, about removing trees. So I don't know if this is a follow-on or it hasn't been done. I'm all for it. I think the more they can clean up, the better. Just curious if that section's been done or it's the same place.
Thanks, Councillor Burkett. This has been on the radar for a little while, but it's definitely, Les has also spoken to myself as well, and it's definitely speaking about exactly the same area. It hasn't been done, and that's why I brought a council report to today's meeting so we can get a report back on whether it can be done and what needs to be done. Just with that, clarifying in here, I put in the details of the agenda that apparently this has always been known as an area. It was known as a gazetted skiing area, I've heard from the local community. And so I'm just wondering if part of the report that comes back is if we can actually find out if that still is the case, if it's a gazetted skiing area, because there's trees that are in the waterways that it's making it a bit dangerous to ski along the river.
Councillor McMullen.
Just start speaking.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just Councillor Hancock's half answered the question. I know you mentioned in the water, and that's what I was going to suggest, should we change the resolution, because it says flood mitigation work on the Balonne River, and we need to exterior and in the water as well.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McMullen. I did change it when I spoke. I never actually said what was written there. So just for clarification for the minutes, that a report be brought to a future council meeting regarding removal of debris in and along the Balonne River between Fisherman's Park and the Weir.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Burkett, did you want to second that motion?
Yep.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just again, I have been approached from many community members in Surat who use that area for recreational, not only skiing but fishing as well. It is concerned that there is trees that have fallen into the river, so there's hazards in the river. Our river is a beautiful place where we love it as we live there, but also our tourists come there as well. I've also had some concerns about the fact that it's been quite overgrown along the riverbanks as well, and years ago it wasn't quite as that growth, and so having a look at that growth as well along the riverbanks.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
Yeah, I'd just like to endorse those comments as well. I just think if things are let go too long, like it might be 3 or 4 boats come out for the weekend and they get turned away, the local community loses that that coin value and people using the facility in the town. Our weir is the same. There's trees sometimes get taken out. I know the fishermen like the trees in there, but the skiers and recreation don't. But I'm not sure whether sun water would have to be approached as well in regards to this. So whether we have to add that in or that will be brought up in the report. But yeah, I think it's a great thing to clear our waterways for recreation and use.
Councillor Edwards.
I don't know who to ask this question to, but what tenure have we got over the actual river and its banks? I think Councillor Burke just mentioned sunwater thing, but I'm just wondering what tenure or are the leases in place, or what's the story there, Director Rob?
Yes, certainly with some water there, there's been Mitchell there with the weir there. Every time we've tried to do removals there, we've had to deal with some water. The Surat one, I'm not familiar with, hence the report coming back, that'll identify all of that. So.
Okay, any other questions? So we've had the mover speak to the motion. Does anyone else wish to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor, I just wonder if I need to change the heading just through you to the CEO, whether we just change the heading, or if CEO, you're comfortable with that? Yeah, I just thought to tidy it up, we might just change that. So maybe removal of debris in and along River Surat, that'd be more appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
We don't have a second.
I'm happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
No, we've got
Councillor
a second. Councillor Burke. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. L3, results of consultation, regional swimming pool entry fees. I would like to move that council consider the outcome of community consultation on pool entry fees. 3, call for tenders to manage the Denise Spencer Roma swimming pool for a period of 2 years with the option for a further 2 by 1 year terms. With the tender condition that there will be no charge for pool entry fees for general admission. This shorter term is in recognition of council's commitment to upgrade the Denise Spencer swimming pool complex.
I can't type that fast.
Sorry. Please, let me know where you're up to.
Could you just identify, please, where it's different from the officer's
Okay, remove
recommendation?
number 2. And then point 3 becomes point 2, and then after you deal with the terms, then that there will be no charge for general admission. No charge for general admission, with the plan to bring swimming pools in the Maranoa in line with the Injune swimming pool to create higher usage for our subsidised facilities. And then the next point, which would be point 3, request costings on upgraded security system with recordings available for access for law enforcement for the Roma swimming pool. To focus on improved behaviour for all users of the pool. And obviously that, if this gets up, that would come back to council as a costing that we would have to look at. And it would be part of what was put in the tender for the new tender arrangements.
So does point one still stay?
What do you want to do at point
Yeah,
one?
no, it's exactly the same.
But you need to,
I would just said, we've considered it, or note, council note, the outcomes of community consultation. Or, okay, did you want me to read that?
We'll just have a quick.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. Sorry. Have you got them there to give to the CEO? CEO, there's a couple of more points that's been requested to add. Do you have them?
Does the mayor agree with them though?
Happy with that?
Sorry, Tanya, would you mind just reading those out?
Yeah, enter a short-term management agreement with Stacey Roberts. Agreement with Stacey Roberts to manage Denise Spencer.
Stacey, this is the
Chief Executive Officer to execute short-term management agreement.
And the rest goes.
Yeah, correct. And CEO, just up on point 2. So we've got the no charge for general admission with the plan to bring swimming pools in line in the Maranoa to be so yeah, just need to clarify that. That's like, you know, when tenders come up in the future, it's not not about a blanket thing now. So it's just about the Roma swimming pool. And if we can add in Maranoa in line with Injune swimming pool with free admission, free general admission.
Could we just say consistent with the Injune?
I think we need to say that it has free admission now. So for people that read the motion, they understand. If they don't know the Injune swimming pool, they would not know. And then the next part is to provide high, not subsidisation, but utilisation. Utilisation by the public for our council facilities. Utilisation. By the public. Yeah, for our council facilities. So that would be, the other pools would be, if this gets up, when tenders go out again. So that's what the clarification.
Yeah, so, sorry, if we just say something to the effect of, with the plan to progressively bring swimming pools in the Maranoa into line into.
But if there is leasees or what reading it, we don't want them to think that it's changing now. It's at the beginning of new tenders. So I think we need to mention something about tenders.
Could be the word subsequent tenders.
Or subsequent tenders, yep. Okay.
And that upon the calling of new tenders, there be no charge for general admission for swimming pools in the Maranoa, consistent with the Injune swimming pool, which has free admission to encourage higher utilisation by the public of our council facilities.
Correct.
Sorry, councillor, just a question for staff going forward. Is the intention that this kicks in once the tender's been, that this is the basis of the new tender until that point with the fee stay in place until we actually,
Okay. Okay, so do we have a seconder for that motion?
New tenders for other facilities.
We'll just wait for the CEO to finish this so everyone knows what they're...
Yeah, so Mr Mayor, if we just say for a 2-year period with the option of further 2 one-year terms incorporating free admission, so that puts to bed the Roma situation. And then upon the calling of other new tenders, that there be no charge for general admission, etc.
Yeah, in line with the Injune pool.
Consistent with the Injune, which has free admission to encourage high utilisation.
Okay, does everyone understand the motion? Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition?
And there's just been minor edits as we type through there for an upgraded security system.
Correct.
And the rest is as read, I think. But it's on the screen, councillors.
Okay, does everyone understand that? Okay, so I'll speak for the motion. I believe that, council, this is an opportunity for us to bring all the pools in line with offering livability advantages of being in the Maranoa, because general admission will be free in the pool to enter our pools. Slowly this would happen over time, and it would not be, it would only be when tenders would come up. I have been aware of the concern would be if you make it free that you might have more behaviour issues, but the truth is sometimes behaviour issues are there already, and we need to deal with something with those. There is ways that you can do that, and I've put forward in this motion that we improve the CCTV of the Roma pool, which will, I believe, benefits in behaviour. One of the big things in the Maranoa is when people are looking at moving here or living here, what are the advantages? And having pools that we subsidise for sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars and have low utilisation, we really need to get more people using our pools. That's how we get the value for money for ratepayers. So this would be a wonderful thing that would put the Maranoa on the map. And not only that, if you're wanting to get kids busy, if you can get them to the pool and wear themselves out, they generally become pretty happy. And I've had many situations where people at the Maranoa have questioned why it's not affordable to go to the pool. And I think the situation we've got in Injune is excellent, and we should be rolling out that to starting with Roma. And this will be an opportunity to really see how many people we can get to use our facilities that we subsidise enormously. Okay, would someone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Taylor.
If I could just ask something to Major Turner. The Injune pool, is it gas? Is it heated?
No, the Injune pool isn't a heated pool.
No.
So it's open, Roma pool is open all year round except for 1 month, while the Injune pool isn't heated, so it closes for the cooler month, which is about Easter through to September, while the Roma pool only closes for the month as it is heated by gas.
Yeah, it's heated by gas and it costs a lot of money. That's my point. The fact is, we can't afford for it to be free. I don't believe. We've just done a survey, and do you think people would use the pool more if it was free? No. Do you think they'd spend more money at the kiosk? No. I just don't believe that people expect something for nothing. Ratepayers pay, like that pool is subsidised so much now, you're never going to get the money back anyway. But at least the people that use it are paying for it, not everybody that doesn't use it. I just don't agree. I don't know why people don't expect something for nothing. Like they pay their rates, they get on with the job, and then they want to go to the pool, they pay to go to the pool. I just don't understand why anyone thinks it has to be free. That's just
Okay, would anyone like to speak for the motion? Councillor McMullen.
I've got more of a question, Mr Mayor, maybe to Director Rob. At the moment, how much money does the lessee contribute towards the cost of the gas?
They don't contribute anything. Council absorbs the cost for electricity, gas. obviously they, at the start of the tender process, they gave us a price to actually basically to manage our facility. And we cover all the costs for outgoings.
So the gas and electricity, there'll be no change to the, either way, whether it's free or as we've been?
In talking to the leasees, obviously, as they come available there, they factor in the revenue through the gate. So obviously won't affect the cost of the heating or electricity. It's just obviously what we pay our leasees if they're foregoing a percentage of their revenue through the gate. I imagine that'll go on top of the actual on the actual management costs.
Just so I'm clear, the council pay the leasee to help contribute to the leasee, the running of it, and then they make some out of the gate fee. So at the moment, the lessee is not contributing anything.
No, so the leasee is responsible for obviously the ground maintenance and that sort of stuff, but the rest of the costs there, the electricity, the gas, that's all council. Their revenue comes from being paid by council for the management of our facility. They also get to keep the gate takings as well as the sales they put through, the kiosk, and then obviously the learn to swim revenue as well.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So just to clarify and leverage off Councillor Taylor's point, the bottom line is that there is an expense associated with the pool, and the question that really is being considered by council is whether it's user pays, so the person who uses the pool pays for that, or whether it goes and it's funded through general rates. So it's the user pays versus the general rates. So someone has to pay for it.
Just clarifying that. It's not user pay at the moment, CEO. As you know, it's heavily subsidised, so it's not user pay. But it may
Sorry, user contributed to. Yeah, but at the moment, it's a user contributing to the cost of providing that facility versus going to 100% the ratepayer paying for it.
Okay, so we're moving on to the debate. Would someone wish to speak for the motion? Or it's against? Please go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Once again, I'm disappointed as a councillor to be asked to be voting on something today that once again we don't have a costing for. We don't know how much it's going to cost the ratepayer for us to fully subsidise the entry into the Roma pool, because as it has been said, that right now when the tender goes out, the people who put in the tender factor in that they get the gate money. So I would assume that they're going to put up their rate because they're going to lose the gate money. So therefore, that is a cost to council, and I don't know what that is because I haven't seen the figures as to how much that might be. So I can't vote on something that I do not know the costings on. The other thing is you know, we have had feedback. We've had feedback from the community, and only as early as last week we had feedback from the Roma Pool Community Action Group, and they sat there and told council that they didn't think that it was a good idea not to charge for entry into the pool. Now, the Roma Pool Community Action Group is a newly formed group that has representatives of everybody across the board, everybody who uses the Roma pool. They come to council and told us they didn't think it was a good idea. That was some feedback from the community. So, you know, don't get me wrong, I agree with having affordable rates for people to use our pools. They're wonderful facilities in our town. But I do think that you need to value what you can use and by having an affordable rate, you're valuing what you're getting in your town. And so I don't believe that it should be free entry, but my major concern is the costing of the being able to vote on it today when I don't have clear costings. My other big concern with this is, once again, as council, we're doing a blanket effect. We're putting in a motion that says that we're going to roll this out to every pool in the region. But have we actually asked those other lessees that are doing it now that may want to tender what they think? I know for a fact that one of the regional pool lessees now actually disagree with having free entry. They believe in affordable entry for pool use, but they don't want free entry into the pool because it becomes a workplace health and safety issue for them. I just think this blanket approach of let's just put it right across Maranoa, instead of doing an individual approach and speaking to the lessees in each town, is a much better approach for council, and it's actually due diligence that we just don't do a blanket across the region. But my major concern today is, once again, I'm asked to vote on something where I don't have the costings, so that's why I won't be supporting this motion today.
Okay. Okay, does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Burkett.
I take on board with the Roma pool is probably a unique one in regards to the other pools. Like, it's not apples for apples. But just on the pool that's in my town, I suppose, when we got it redeveloped 10 years ago, these are some of the things we lost, and the price has probably gone up. Diving boards, the deep end of the pool, actually even the shallow end, you could dive in that in. Shade, a grandstand, the ability to play sport, basketball court, small pool, cubicles in the change room, and longer hours. So they were the things that are missing since we got the pool redeveloped. So more money was spent on the place, but we lost all those assets. Having a free or even heavily reduced will encourage families to go. A lot of feedback I've been getting is that they want to spend the day there as a family, whether it's like all day or the full afternoon. I think if you send kids to the pool with $10, they'll spend $10. You know, whether it's on the entry or food or merchandise at the canteen. I think we need to utilise our facilities. The parks is fully subsidised. That's maintained all year round, and then people use that. It'd be good if they use it even more. So we are subsidising. We're subsidising. We've got one person in the pool. It still costs the same. Whether we've got 100 people in the pool, it's still the same cost in pumps. We don't have the heating in Mitchell either. I think there is a need to have consistency in all areas. I know Roma is probably the only one that is different to the other areas, but I think we do need major changes in this aspect.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I'm speaking against the motion on a couple of points, but I'm a user of the pool. I wasn't until I started my family, but it costs us $6 to use the pool, $4 for me and $2 for my daughter. That's not a huge cost, but is a cost that goes towards maintaining the pool. In a few agenda items time, we'll be talking about the bigger picture on the Roma pool and what we need to do with it. There is going to be significant investment coming from different levels of government, and our local government won't be immune to it. We will have to invest in this particular asset, and I think it should be a user contributes system. We can get bogged down in whether it's user pay or user contributes, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to use the Roma pool, I, as one of them in the region that does go through the entry door of the Roma pool, I'm happy to pay. And I think others are as well, and that's clear in the feedback that's come back through our community consultation, whether the Roma pool or pools in general should be free. Not one of us here is a pool manager, unless I'm mistaken, and yet the feedback from our pool managers is leave it as is. And I think it's again sad that we're not taking on board the feedback that we've received out in our community when we go out to consult. Now, it's no surprise that I don't support free pools. I haven't since I was elected in 2012. But what does surprise me today is that there are people here that are willing to support this that aren't asking what it's going to cost. And I'm sorry, that is just simply poor decision making to support something where you don't know what the financial implications are going to be, because the people that are going to have to pay for the subsidy of this, if this decision goes forward, are the ratepayers. and they will be ratepayers that may not ever use the pool. And I think that's sad. We've had the debate around whether, not to digress, but whether the car park at the airport should be free. I don't agree with that. You park there, you pay for it. I park there, I pay for it. It should be the same for the pool. As for Injune, that's a carryover prior to amalgamation. And I don't think we should change it. I don't. But I don't think we should be, at this time, on the Roma pool, where we're going to be discussing the big investment that's going to have to incur in this term of council. I believe to upgrade a 50-year-old asset, we should be going out to tender on for a management agreement where the pool is entry is free. That's part of the revenue that attracts people to tender for the management of this particular asset. And again, I stress, why is a decision going to be put when you don't know the financial implications of the rate base that have put you in this room?
Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd just like to say that there is a different set of circumstances for many of the pools in our region. I know the Wallumbilla pool is actually owned by Education Queensland, and when I was down there as principal, was part of the negotiation and very, very aware of the financial implications of then leasing it to the council and then having somebody then take on the operations. I think it's more than a financial decision, it's an access issue. I'm also very, very aware of so many people who travel during the year to maintain training arrangements. Many of the pools do close after Easter, which means there's many months of the year where there's no access to pools. So when you factor in the travelling costs when people are seriously going up every day to training on a regular basis, I think that might not be part of the picture that we're looking at, but it's also a consideration.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Okay, I'll sum up. Well, a couple of points that have been raised which I think are incorrect is one, that when we go to a tender, which we were deciding to go anyway, we have no idea what it's going to cost, whether you're charging for entry or not. So it's not correct to say that you have certainty now, because you never have certainty when you have a tender going out. Secondly, as far as free entry does not mean a free-for-all. It means the same conditions getting into the pool, it's just that you're not paying. So the people running our pools, which are very subsidised, will still have the ability to control and need to, for safety reasons, control what happens at the pool. So none of that will change. But it will just mean equity and access. And if you have a look at the amount of people using our pools for what council is spending, it is enormous. So if we can have more people of the Maranoa using our pools, if we can have more people, more families, families that might think that $6 is a lot of money to go to the pool, to be able to use the pool for free. So this is about access, equality, allowing everyone to get to the pool, which where council's paying for now. And as far as the cost of gas is our own internal cost of gas. So we're going to be spending that anyway, and no one else is paying for that. So you either have more people using a facility that councils spent hundreds of thousands of dollars subsidising, or you have a few people that will use that and perhaps would like to keep it to a smaller amount of people. So I believe what we've got to do is say, let's get the most for the Maranoa, and if it's a story that gets around that Maranoa is the place to go, because one of the benefits is you can go to the pool and it won't send you broke to send your kids there, that's a wonderful thing for the people of the Maranoa. Okay, so on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 6-3 if I call for a division.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I suggest we have a 5-minute toilet break, please?
Okay, 5 minutes, thank you. Okay, we might continue if everyone's ready. Okay, L4. Applications for funding under Australian Government Building Better Regions Fund, Round 5, Infrastructure Project Stream. We have a, Councillor Edwards, you'd like to say something?
Yes, I'd like to say that I have a personal interest in L4.
Yeah, so the person who has the interest is yourself, Councillor Edwards. Does it pertain to a gift, loan, sponsored travel, accommodation benefit, or a contract between the local government and the councillor or a close associate of the councillor, or the grant of a licence, permit, registration or approval for consideration under the Local Government Act?
Hello. It doesn't involve a donation, a loan, or a gift, or...
So none of the above?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, none of the above.
So if anything, the councillors, it will be declarable. And if you could give the particulars of the interest that you think you might have. Because councillors, remember, I think what we get tangled up with is that the matter on the agenda is, it has to pertain to the exact matter on the agenda, not a general point.
Okay. So the interest that I'm talking about is the fact that I sell oranges at the Calico Cottage. So as soon as I saw that, I thought I had a conflict, and I've gone on from that and probably connected the two in saying that my interest may be in the event of a successful application. And if I'm still selling oranges there in the new precinct, then would I benefit in that?
So the question is, do we submit an application for funding under the Building Better Regions Fund? So it's nothing to do with whether we allow you to sell, we as a council allow you to sell oranges there or not. It's, should we?
Well, based on that, I don't appear to have. Based on that.
CEO's took hers on, I think.
I have it. Please. No, it's all good. So based on that, it's not directly connected to submitting an application for funding for the Wallumbilla Calico Cottage and Tourism Precinct. So without...
Councillor Edwards, but did you have the opportunity to declare if you wanted?
Correct.
Or it's up to you?
Okay. Well, I'll do a declarable, I think I'll just do a declarable conflict of interest on that one. That would be it.
So could you please describe, so how could you benefit, what the nature of the interest for the submission of the funding application?
Right.
You can't, CEO.
CEO storage, John.
CEO's is on the council.
We're trying that model on a different way.
It's off now.
So the nature of the interest, well, I have no interest in submitting the application for the funding, but the nature of a potential interest is if it's successful and the thing's built, and I saw my oranges there, that would be the interest I would have in it, I would imagine.
CEO, is it a question that could the councillor, if it doesn't fit the criteria, could the councillor actually ask for it to be noted of the interest so all councillors know about it, or not?
No, like it's a.
I think it's just got to, excuse me. So once we've established that, should it be that we just vote on it? The rest of the councillors vote on it.
So this is the point. This is the point, councillors, is that once you identify an interest or someone identifies it for you, it's a prescribed or it's a declarable. Now, depending on what it is, that's how it gets dealt with. So you can't just mention it and then leave it hanging. It's up to the rest of the council then to determine how they deal with it. And we have to record certain things in the minutes once those two things are identified. So we can't be half in and half out.
Interesting. So I'm happy to call it a declarable interest, and I will leave it up to the rest of the council to decide whether I should stay in the meeting or not.
Okay, do we have someone to move something? Councillor Guthrie?
Microphone.
I'd like to move that it is in the public interest that councillor Mark, I was looking at you, John Edwards participates and votes in agenda item L4 because a reasonable person would trust that the final decision that you make is in the public interest.
And I'd second that. Second that. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Well, let's do that vote again. All those in favour? All those against? 6-2 if I can call for a division. Okay. L4, applications for funding under Australian Government's Building Better Regions Fund, Round 5, Infrastructure Project Stream. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 submit application for funding for the Wallumbilla Calico Cottage and Tourism Precinct under the Australian Government's Building Better Regions Fund, Round 5, Infrastructure Project Stream. 2, allocate...
Just hang on. You have something?
Testing. Just on the conflict of interest, I know that it was the vote was 6-2. Am I able to ask, like once the vote's done, why could it be a prescribed conflict of interest, and should I leave the room?
Well, it might be. Does anyone wish to volunteer any concerns or anything that we have at the moment? Councillors? Any councillors? Do Do any councillors have any concerns about?
I just feel a little uncomfortable, that's all. I just want to clarify that even though, sorry, it's not prescribed, but even though it's declarable and the vote's been taken, and if I'm unsure, it's usually this measure should declare, declare the interest, but should I leave the room?
Okay.
And I'm changing my mind.
Does anyone have any comment on that?
Are you asking, I mean, it's unorthodox to do what's about to be done, but Councillor Edwards, are you asking, you know, why I voted against it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned that there may be some other reason that I don't know about, that's all.
It could be because no one spoke to a motion or against.
Correct, yeah, I haven't got enough information to make that decision, but I'm just wondering if that is the case.
Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'm of the opinion the vote's been taken and we'd have to have a rescission notice to reverse it. I might be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Does anyone have anything? Anyone have anything else they'd like to add before we keep going?
I think Councillor McMullen's correct, but if a councillor changed their mind themselves and didn't feel comfortable, well, that's entirely up to the individual councillor. But I'm happy to continue with the recommendation.
So, Councillor Edwards, are you comfortable with staying in as council's decided, or would you like to leave the room?
I think I'll leave the room.
Right, okay. Please go ahead. Councillor O'Neill, please go ahead.
I'll start again. I'll move that Council 1 submit application for funding for the Wallumbilla Calico Cottage and Tourism Precinct under the Australian Government's Building Better Regions Fund Round 5 Infrastructure Project Stream. 2, allocate the co-contribution as required in the 2021 budget to enable any successful projects to commence within 12 weeks of executing a grant agreement. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to sign the funding application. And 4, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to sign the funding agreements as required if the project is successful.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook, any opposition? Was there any?
Got a question.
Please go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. Deputy Director Cam, the point to allocate the co-contribution as required in the 2021 budget, is there a turn of phrase that may not lock council in 4 months out from budget deliberations? I'm just conscious of the fact that we haven't even started our budget workshops / discussions, briefings, and I'm sure this needs to be in the mixing pot, but...
Councillor O'Neill, I think we could just go something along the lines of consider that there's no requirement to formally allocate as of today. There'll be a really, obviously, a critical decision if council receives advice that we've been successful and would need to. So consider a co-contribution allocation as required in the 2000 being should the funding application be successful, something like that.
Mayor, I'd like to amend point 2 to that council consider the co-contribution required in the 2021-22 budget to enable successful projects to commence within 12 weeks of executing the grant agreement.
I've got a question on that, that change, but wouldn't we, to the Deputy Director, when we apply, don't we commit that we're going to, well, that we're applying that we're going to do it, or do we have to give them any commitments, or is it open-ended?
Mr Mayor, we'll be applying for funding under the premise of potentially a 75-25% contribution, but ultimately it will be the government will provide an offer to council. I would strongly recommend before signing any financial commitment, which is the funding agreement, that council would need to lock down their allocation. But whilst slightly unorthodox, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be out of the question that it could actually be declined as well. I'm not suggesting it would be, but.
I've got another question. So, for instance, if you take, say, Signage project, so for instance, with the road out there, did we, when we went for funding, was it in the same situation as this, or was funding put aside before we did this?
So, Mr Mayor, with the Signage one, in the bridge replacement program, they were one and the same programs. A report came back to council to confirm where their funding allocation was going to come from for that one. So that was obviously the discussion around the media, particularly around their project announcements on that.
So just a question: when we actually went for that project, we didn't have specific budget allocation. We obviously agreed to put the application in. Is that correct? Just sort of looking for a precedent. Because it's my understanding, I don't think we always have that. We just know we're committing to it if it did come up. So is your general, what happens when we're going for a grant? Do we put the money aside? Normally we wait till we get it and then we're committed to finding the money, and obviously council could decline it, of course, but
So Mayor, if I can, as a mover, a good example will be the Big Rig project. We applied for the money on the basis that we would have to contribute, but we didn't have the money put aside at the time to do it, but we ultimately took out a loan to do that. So there is a precedent. I'm just simply suggesting that we change that to consider, because we're 4 months out from our budget, and I don't think we should be presumptuous enough that we're allocating that money today when we don't know the bigger picture.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The council given principles.
The Mayor, the CEO has just suggested that another turn of phrase could be the council to give in principle support to allocate the co-contribution as required.
Okay, so that's what you're happy to move?
And we've got a second that I'm happy with.
I think the funding body would, I just think the funding. Sorry, I think the funding body would like something a little bit more than think about it, because they will make an announcement if we're successful, so.
Okay. Right, so you're happy with that, Councillor O'Neill?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, would anyone, will we have a seconder? Any opposition? I'll speak in opposition to the motion. Does mover wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I think this is a wonderful project that's been on the cards for such a long period of time down in Wallumbilla, and to see this come to fruition, I think would give a real boost to the morale of that particular area of our region. It will not only enhance what's already there, but will add to it and make this a must-stop destination, even more than what it currently is to the travellers that traverse the Warrego Highway. I think this is the project we should be putting forward to the Australian Government. The commitment of up to 75%, of course, is an attractive one for a council our size, and if we can get the support of the Australian Government for another large project investment to work with the money that we've already received through the Origin contract that one of our former council colleagues championed, in former Councillor David Sheep. I think this would be a win-win for this particular area of the Maranoa, and I strongly support and implore the councillors to support this recommendation.
Okay, I'll speak against the motion. I'm not in favour of this motion. I'm certainly fully supportive of Wallumbilla Calico Cottage and Tourism Precinct, but I do believe it needs the strong wording as per the officer's recommendation to allocate the co-contribution as required. We're very close to our budget. I do believe that we need to send every strong signal that this is a major priority for Maranoa Regional Council, and changing the wording to in principle I don't believe is in the best interest of the Wallumbilla community. Okay, would someone wish to speak for the motion? Does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
Do we want to just check with the officer that looks after the planning submission as to what the prerequisite is?
Julie, I can. I think that it's difficult because each funding application is different. Some will mandate that you have to even send a confirmed contribution as part of the application.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if...
It'll remove any doubt.
Yeah, so let's lay it on the table and just ask the question what the prerequisite is. If that's going to be the deciding matter for the vote, one way or the other, then let's ask the question.
I'll move this matter lays on the table for later in the meeting.
All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, moving on, L5, Roma Denise Spencer Pool Feasibility Study. I'd like to move that Council authorise the development of a detailed concept plan and refine operational and capital estimates for the Roma Denise Spencer Pool, incorporating the feedback from the Roma Pool Community Action Group and broader community, including A, the facility to remain on the existing site, B, a new 25-metre enclosed heated program, learn to swim and rehab pool to cater for rehab pool. Actually, I'll just say that again for the CEO's benefit. A new 25-metre enclosed heated program pool to cater for learn to swim, health programming and aquatic classes, aqua classes and rehab. I'll spell that out even though it's probably in health programming, and rehab. C, retain and replace the 8-lane 50-metre pool located within the existing 50-metre pool enclosure, incorporating a ramp to cater for all abilities. D, removal of existing water park and replacement with a major leisure water park slash splash pad concept with final design to be inclusive of all ages. E, buildings to incorporate a potential new entry point, commercial cafe, male and female toilets / change rooms, family change rooms, disabled change room, clubhouse, storage rooms, and if space permits, a small meeting room. F, new spectator seating provision for major events. G, improved grass picnic, barbecue and open space areas. And then I'd also like to put H with the opportunity of building the 25-metre pool as stage 1 to allow for a operational pool before the 50-metre pool is construction starts. Yeah, but I think it needs to be in the mix that we have an opportunity for a pool. So have we got that up there, CEO? Opportunity to build a 25-metre pool as stage 1 to allow, well, maybe we should say continued operations. Opportunity to build a 25-metre pool as stage 1 to allow for continual operation or...
The operational while stage 2 is being constructed.
Yeah, that's it, spot on. Then point 2, consult with Roma Pool Community Action Group through the development of concept design and ensuring the operational considerations for all pool users are incorporated with the concept design. 3, be presented with a subsequent report including the development concept plan and refinement operational and capital estimates for review and approval. To release for broader community feedback. Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Edwards was first. Any opposition?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can we just go back to B?
Sure.
A new 25-metre enclosed and heated pool to cater for, there was just an odd word of program in the middle of it, which didn't quite make sense. So could we say to cater for learn to swim, rehabilitation and, what was it, aquarobic?
Aqua classes, I think it was.
Yeah. What was there? I think you just added rehab.
Yeah, rehab, yeah.
I think what was there,
Yeah.
what you were saying was what was there, but just on the end of that, health/rehab.
Yeah.
And really focus that, you know, a lot of people don't go to the pool, but this is a different concept where people might do it for health reasons. Okay. Learn to swim, health, rehabilitation, aqua classes. Yeah.
Mr Mayor, I just have a question. So the 50-metre pool, it's heated now, so that if you've got the money, the 50-metre pool wouldn't be heated, it'd be only the 25-metre pool.
That wouldn't really be decided today. Really, it would depend on many things. Many steps to go through. So it could be to do with costing at the moment. So it depends if council...
The priority would be the 25-metre
pool. The 25-metre, yeah, what I'd like to see considered is an indoor 25-metre pool, which is focused on reducing your operating costs as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so programs and aqua classes. Yep. Okay, and right, okay, so we've got a mover and a second. We've got any opposition? Would anyone like to speak to the motion? I certainly would. I see changing times when it comes to our usage of our pools, and I believe the inclusion of, for council to consider a 25-metre pool, which really is probably more health focused and learn to swim, would be a really welcome So the medical professionals have really spoken out that they would like to see this and have access to this, and believe in one conversation there's 40 people a week that could use it already. So this is something that I believe is part of a bigger change in society, and I'll certainly be supporting this motion and how we can deliver this, without large cost to community. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Okay, well, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Bill 6, Country University Centres Maranoa signage request.
Mayor, I have a personal interest in this matter.
L6, Country University Centre Maranoa signage request. So that's yourself, Councillor O'Neill.
Yes.
And who will benefit?
The entity which is the Country University Centre.
And your relationship with them?
I am a board member and chair of the Country University Centre Maranoa.
So this pertains to a grant of licence permit approval under the Act, so that would be prescribed.
It is a prescribed conflict of interest, yes.
Yep, and the particulars of we've done that. And you obviously need to leave the room.
Dealing with it by leaving the room.
There is no option, councillors, with prescribed. So.
Okay, L6, Country University Centre Maranoa signage request. I've got a question on this one. Are we proposing to actually paint our building if this was supported, or just signage with this one?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Under the lease agreement that Council's currently negotiating with the Country University Centre Maranoa, there is a requirement in there in regard to signage, and that if they wish to install this signage, they need to gain council approval. So what the Country University Centre is asking is if they can install the CUC Maranoa signage on the points that they've mentioned. They've provided some photos there of what it's going to look like. So it's using the existing Roma Recreation Centre signage and adding the orange signage of Country Universities on the bottom of that existing signage. They also wish to repaint the existing red-orange external building paint at the community hub. It's only a small amount of paint there, which you can see in the photo that's on page, I think it's 41. That red-orange to their colour, which their branding colour, which is mandarin, which is quite an orange colour anyway. So they have said though that at the end of the lease term they understand that they will be obliged to remove any signage and reinstate the property to its original colour, and that's to be done at no cost to council.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, councillors?
I was just going to leave it.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah. Oh, did you have a question?
I just had a question. Is it possible, Mr Mayor, to actually break that up into two separate and make decisions on each?
Sure.
Each of those two
I'm happy
separate.
to do that. So we just deal with the 2 points. Did you?
Right, me, if Councillor Guthrie wants to move, she can move that.
Okay, Councillor Guthrie, would you like to move?
I'd like to move that council upon execution of the lease agreement of the Roma Community Hub, grant permission for the Country University Centre Maranoa as trustee lessee to install the CUC Maranoa signage in accordance with the lease agreement signage requirements.
Okay, so it's point one of the officer's recommendation. Okay, we have a seconder for that motion.
Just changing it to approval rather than permission, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. We've got another. So L6, does anyone wish to move or something in relation to the other point? Read the painting. Councillor Hancock.
I'll move that. Just a question first, Mr Mayor, through you. Do we need to, if I'm moving the second point, do I need to say the first bit again and then the second point? Would you like me to do that? Yeah. Sorry, it was a real
Does it stay the same? So I'm just curious.
Councillor Baker just asked me if it stays as L61.
Is it L6, was it changed?
I'll just do it as two separate motions.
Okay. I move that council upon execution of the lease agreement of the Roma Community Hub grant permission for Country University Centre Maranoa as trustee lessee to repaint the existing red-orange external building paint to the CUC brand paint colour, on the condition that the trustee lessee removes its signs and reinstates the property to its original colour at the end of the lease agreement at no cost to council. On the condition that the trustee lessee reinstates the property to its original colour at the end of the lease agreement at no cost to council. I just took that out because it only relates to the painting of the building.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? I'll speak in opposition. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The reason that I am supporting this is that it's obviously a recommendation from our staff, and I trust that they've done the due diligence, and that there's no reason not to support the Country University Centre to promote their business for having the University Centre in that building. I think it's a great great idea to brand the building so people can actually visually see where it is, and it's going to go back to what it was at the end, so I can't see a reason why you wouldn't support it.
Sorry, Councillor, just to be clear there too, we've talked about their cost to reinstate it, but it's also they're paying for the painting of it as well too, and the repainting as well, just to make that clear. And the colour, it's same colour, it's just a different shade.
Okay.
Director Rob, is that wording correct? Should that be?
No, that's not, I don't think that is what that's not what, I don't think that's what I said.
Sorry, I think that upon execution of the lease agreement with the Roma Community Hub, grant approval for Country University Centre Maranoa as trustee lessee to repaint.
It's the wall.
Yeah, repaint the existing
property.
Red-orange external building paint to the CUC brand paint colour.
I think councillors, sorry, I think the CEO's got that covers it, because they're not painting the whole building, it's just, as with the feature panels on the front there, so they're not painting the whole building, it's just the front where it is the entrance to their part of the building. The council knows there's the community coming to that part for our services, that just the only people who come to that through that doorway now will be for the CUC, so it's not the whole building, so I think what the CEO's got there does cover if it's any parts of the building.
Is the first bit though, is the first bit repaint?
Paint or is it to paint?
Well, that's what I got a bit confused when I looked up, but I did say repaint because that's what was in the report.
Yeah, is it to paint the existing?
Well, it has paint on it now, so you probably are repainting, isn't it? Yeah, did you say it was painted?
Are they changing?
Changing the colour. Approval to change the colour, the existing colour to.
To paint.
Why don't we just say to use? On what section?
Current feature walls.
Yeah, the current.
Current entrance feature walls. It's a say.
So the sides of main sign, metal around rotunda, feature wall of building. So it'd be the feature wall, which is near the entrance, and the rotunda metal, those posts on it to be orange.
5, 6 posts.
So in that particular case, it's approval for them to use the CUC brand paint colour on the feature wall and rotunda on the condition that they reinstate the painted section to its original colour at the end of the lease agreement at no cost to council.
Okay, so we're up to speaking against the motion. I'll speak against. Certainly support country universities, but I don't believe, as this is temporary for the next 3 years, that we should be painting the building. I think all of the signage that we've just agreed can be done, I think is appropriate for the situation that we find ourselves in, and don't believe we need to paint the building or a section of the building. Okay, would anyone else wish to speak? Okay, then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Don't I get to sum up, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just would like to clarify that I acknowledge that it's short term, and I would have a problem if they weren't offering to repaint the building to put it back to its existing colours. But how does it matter to us? Because it's really just going to be painting their colours for their branding and then putting it back to the existing colours when they're finished, just like if someone was renting a house and would like to paint a beach wall in the house. And that's why I'm supporting this motion.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Well, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Lost 3-5, if I can call for a division.
Mr Mayor, can you just check this 9-0 in the previous one? It should be 8-0.
8-0.
Isn't it? You're on.
Sorry? 8.
It's already got 8s in it. So who was the three, sorry?
John, Wendy and I.
Yeah, we're right to get count money back, are we?
All good. Yes, now to see yet?
Not
No?
as yet, please.
Hang on. Do a few push-ups. This one. No, this one's later. Sorry.
Only just saw it because it's a yellow.
Still didn't have it on it. I do that when I know that it's a data, I spit forward.
I mean,
No, I didn't know it was on the wrong page. They didn't see you on the wrong page. No, it was like containers wrong page. I thought you were talking about who else had one place at the table. Yeah, okay, yeah, this one. But there's not a funny farm in Injune.
I've just got a question.
When you was talking.
Yeah, please, ask it now.
Sorry?
It's the weather.
the weather, yeah.
It's not raining, is it?
It's still fucking rain, Mitigation, you outside. That's a great.
Was it? It's not raining. Oh, you actually stayed out in the rain? Oh, cool. No. Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to be lucky. Well, if it's dry then. That's a nice area.
CEO, I just got a question.
Thank you.
The next one on 7. On page 50, it mentions the name Raglan Street, in which I have an industrial building. But it's of no benefit to me because I'm not in the building, and I wouldn't put it on for them, and if they did put gas on, then they'd be paying for it, not me. What do you think? Happy to leave the room if that's what it is, but it's about the policy, it's not about actually putting a line up Raglan Street. It actually
and applies to everyone, and it's a good service.
It just says the
applies to
area to target is around the network in Raglan Street.
Yes.
Is it to do with better than anyone else in the community, or so?
Yeah. Happy to be guided.
Yeah, we just went on to it, but that's the old. Oh, that's the old one.
So you don't actually pay for the gas? Yeah, even if it was, you don't actually pay for the gas?
Well, no.
No. It's whoever's using it, it's their interest.
Yeah. I would gain that.
It's an ordinary business meeting. If you read the councillor conflict of interest register, you'll see some comments in there.
But what I just said to the CEO was that under a declarable conflict of interest, you get to the point where you ask yourself, is it a donation? No, it's not. Is it a gift? No, it's not. Is it an interest where a reasonable person might think it would be biased? If you as an individual feel that someone out there might think that, then you have a right to put it to council if you want to stay in the room, or you opt to get out.
Yeah, I just want to know the answer to the question she's going to ask me. That's my problem.
It's already theory, wasn't it?
We will all have our turn.
I know. So if you want to ask me the questions, go ahead.
Can we just adjourn for just one moment?
Sounds good.
Have we done that? Mr Mayor, can we just adjourn for a moment?
Just for a minute.
Mr Mayor, just before you move on to the next one, it just occurred to me in the break that there wasn't a statement of reason given as to why it was voted against the officer's recommendation on that last motion.
Okay, yep, so,
I'll just step out again.
sorry, councillor O'Neill.
Sorry.
No, because that's it. It's going back to 6.
Yeah, I'm happy to start off that I believe that the approval of all the signage highlighting country universities is sufficient, and there hasn't been a history of painting features on council building for a temporary tenure. Any other councillors would like to add anything?
Precedent.
Setting a precedent, is that what you'd like to put, councillor Edwards? Yes? Anybody else?
I also think it's a little bit misleading because the building is still owned by the Maranoa Regional Council. There's a short-term 3-year lease for a person who doesn't follow the council deliberations and decision-making, etc. The perception might be that they've actually now taken over with the painting. The sign's fine because that's directional. But I also believe we've got council employees who are still working in the back of it. So it's giving a mixed message. There's actually a dual occupancy.
Okay. Have we got that all captured? You happy with that, Councillor Guthrie?
Thank you.
Okay, if we get Councillor O'Neill back.
All set. Okay. Oh, do you know how much grief that caused us getting on the right page? We're talking through different conversations. Sorry.
Okay, moving on to L7, gas for industrial commercial development policy. I move that we lay this on the table till the next meeting. All those in favour? 9-0. L8, approval for Mayor to incur legal expenses. I move that we lay this on the table till the next meeting. All those in favour?
Why?
To get more information.
So
We do have that, councillors, but it would be appropriate for us to go into closed session to consider the legal advice.
Well,
So it makes sense to do it at the next meeting.
yeah. So we just finished that vote. All those against? Well, we'll do it again. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on.
Got me three.
We've got a few.
We've got the Relining.
We've got the applications for funding for removal.
There seemed to be a bit of a run-off there at the start.
12.3.
There's 11.1, it's laid on the table. 13.4, 12.3.
And L.4.
So what's the page, what's the page number for the first one?
Page 4.
Page 4. Okay. Okay, we'll keep going. 11.1, storage of council permanent records with Queensland State Archives for preservation. Please go ahead.
For you, Mr Mayor. So the State Archives, their storage facility is at their office in Runcorn. It's a purpose-built facility and it is flood-free.
Okay, please go ahead, Councillor Burkett.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move the council documents over 25 years old, identified as permanent records in the General Retention and Disposal Schedule, GRDS, and the Local Government Sector Retention and Disposal Schedule, be stored at the dedicated archival storage facilities operated by the Queensland State Archives.
We have a second, Councillor Hancock. Any questions? Does anyone wish to speak?
Yeah, just that it's important that we keep these records. A lot of history from all the existing shire or previous shires and current Maranoa Regional Council. So it'd be great to keep them all safe and secure in a flood-free preserved in the state facility. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? Right, I will go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on. What was the next page number, please?
35. 35.
35, thank you. Uh, 12.3, tender 21018, relining sewers in Injune and Surat, 2020-2021 tender award. Do we have?
Is that the one you wanted to go into?
No. Yeah, Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move the Council 1 select Relining Solutions Proprietary Limited as the preferred tenderer for tender 21018, noting the tender price of $1,063,907.66, including GST for the completion of sewer relining at Injune and Surat, to authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into final negotiations with Relining Solutions Proprietary Limited and form a contract to carry out the works if final terms are acceptable.
Seconder, Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on. What was the next page?
13.4.
98.
98, thank you. Item 13.4, request for Outback Air Race. Yeah, CEO, we didn't have anyone out of the room for this one, did we?
It's a member.
No. Okay, so over to the manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The question from Councillor McMullen was relating to the user agreement for Busayas. My understanding is that it's the same as any other user agreement for any other facility, just that we have extra provisions in there for QFever. And the Cafe 54 does have the rights, and in the report we'll be catering for it. Is there any other further questions on that one?
So what you're saying is part of the agreement will be stated in there that obviously that they've agreed to use that facility, is that correct?
Yeah, it's the same process for any other facility.
Okay, any other questions, councillors? Okay, did we have a mover for this motion?
Yes, it was me.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. You've got a seconder, I think, haven't you? Oh, you, Mayor, seconded, right. I'll speak in favour of this because it's only coming up now 2 years, I think, since we launched our events prospectus for the region, where we wanted to attract events into the Maranoa to stimulate the local economy. And I think having the Outback Air Race conveners coming to the Maranoa and holding their event locally is a fantastic find from our perspective. We've got a world-class regional airport and something we should be very proud of, and have them flying in to our facility is fantastic. But equally, we have a world-class sale yards. And for it to be used by these particular visitors, I think is a wonderful opportunity. A wonderful opportunity for us to showcase what we've got to offer. But as has been highlighted, the use of the current, attended users of the cafe out there at the sale yards as part of this is a wonderful addition as well, which will be supporting local business. So I wholeheartedly support this. I'm pleased we're getting behind it. And we should be very, very proud that we'll be able to showcase the Maranoa to the travellers that come in as part of this event.
Okay, would anyone else wish to speak? I'd just like to speak and say definitely think this is a great thing. Anytime council this year is waived, there's no cost to land at Roma for a minimum amount of towage and so forth for the light aircraft. So we're a council that wants people to fly in and use our facilities. I'd also like to thank the manager of airports for everything that he does, and also obviously there's an extra workload with this, and we really appreciate what you'll do in making these people welcome and making sure that we keep our facility safe and all the users safe. So thank you. Well, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
L4.
L4.
Page 25.
Thank you. Thank you. What page number, please?
25.
Okay, L4, applications for funding under Australian Government's Building Better Regions Fund, round 5, infrastructure project stream. We just note that Councillor Edwards has left the room. Councillor O'Neill.
Mr. Mayor, I obviously moved this earlier and given the advice that's been provided and circulated by email, I'll amend point 2 back to what was originally proposed by Deputy Director Cam to read as the following. That Council allocate the co-contribution as required in the 2021-22 budget to enable any successful projects to commence within 12 weeks of executing the grant agreement.
Did we have a second?
Sorry, councillors, I'm about one behind.
Okay, we better just pause and let the CEO catch up. Doing a great job over there. Thank you.
Mayor, so I'm happy, as stated just a few moments ago, that I'm proposing we amend point 2 to allocate the co-contribution.
Okay, Councillor Ladbrook, are you happy with that change?
Yes.
Okay, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Thank you.
That's been closed.
CEO, you'd be happy if we, are you up to that part where we can go into close with your?
Yes, we are.
Just before you do though, Mayor,
Sure.
I've got a conflict to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll hand it over to you, Councillor O'Neill.
Mayor, I have a personal interest in C5.
Councillors, that is headed Roma Veterinary Clinic. So the councillor's name, Councillor O'Neill, and who, from the perspective of the personal interest?
It's me.
So, okay, so is it gift, loan, sponsored travel or accommodation benefits, contract or grant of approval?
None of the above.
So it's declarable?
Correct.
And the particulars of the interest?
The particulars are that Tim McClymont and Will Nason, both owners of Roma Veterinary Clinic, are close personal friends, and that the Nasons have allowed my core flute to be hung on their private residence since I ran in a by-election in 2010.
And do you want to, will you be leaving the room during the discussion and voting on the matter?
No, I won't be. I'll be asking council to make a determination as to the next course of action.
Madam CEO, I also have one for that particular agenda item, C5.
Mayor,
well, we should deal with Councillor O'Neill's first and then pass it on. Does anyone have any wording to move on whether Councillor O'Neill stays in the room? Please go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
That in the public interest, I believe that Councillor O'Neill participates and votes in agenda item C5 because a reasonable person would trust that the final decision was made in the public interest.
So just clarifying this, if there's other people, do they vote when that's on CEO? If they might have a conflict too?
We've clarified this before that it's only eligible voters, so the ones that don't have any conflict.
Right.
Or personal
So,
interest.
yeah, just to make it clear for everyone. Okay, yeah.
Sorry, what? What was that?
Well,
individual item, isn't it? We're voting individually, not individual.
If someone else,
Haven't we had this situation before that if someone else is conflicted, they can't vote on whether someone else who's conflicted stays in?
Sorry, yeah, on the same item.
Yeah, on the same item.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're right, yep, okay. So, you've moved that, Councillor Taylor? Yep. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hancock.
Because bearing in mind, councillors, in this particular case, they're close personal friends, so I don't know whether that influences your decision or not.
Okay, and I'll speak against the motion, or I won't speak, but I'll just, so does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Okay, then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's 2, 5. 7, yep, that's right, if I can call for a division. Okay, and now the next one. Councillor O'Neill, do you stay while we're doing the others?
I don't have a vote.
Oh yeah, but you don't stay, righto. Yeah, we've got another one. Yeah, Councillor Guthrie.
Same agenda item, same description. Councillor Guthrie, is it yourself?
No, it's not.
Okay, so could you explain the who?
My
Is the other person?
daughter-in-law, who works as a vet with this particular organisation, and for whom the outcome could have a benefit for her actual employment.
For her employer. Yeah.
And I'm going to choose, regardless of the outcome, to actually leave. I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah, so.
Because I believe a reasonable person.
Yeah, please don't add any more words and just complicate it. So the answer is leaving the. Do you wish to leave the meeting during the discussion and voting on the matter? Yes. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, please, Councillor Guthrie's leaving the room, but you can wait if we've got a more.
Is it? We won't be voting on it.
No, I'm not voting on it. Sorry.
So we.
Did you have a question, or did you want?
We're covering all confidential items here, or just C5.
Well, probably if we're going to be dealing with C5, but we're going into closed, I think. So.
Can we just?
So
On C4.
You're C4.
We just need to decide on C4 first. So Councillor Guthrie's going.
So I can vote on C4.
They can vote on C4.
So it didn't have to leave the room.
Yeah, why did Councillor O'Neill have to
No, because we're going into closed, and if we're going into closed on that item, then it's declared. You can't declare it closed.
Yep, sorry, Councillor Guthrie, this was on the same item, wasn't it, as Councillor O'Neill?
Yeah.
Yes, so can we deal with that decision?
We have, I think.
We've done it. We
done it.
can't
Didn't have to
vote
leave
on
the
the
room
top.
because we have
We
to-
can't vote on
Cameron
the.
didn't have to leave because all it was
That's what I
putting a
thought.
conflict.
Yeah.
We're just putting all the
We
conflicts
just
on the
do-
table
We're not
before we go.
We're not going to discuss the
He might have
subject.
went out to use the phone. You didn't have to leave the room. You didn't have to leave the room.
Oh, I thought you were dealing with that matter.
No, we haven't
Oh, I beg your
another
pardon.
conflict.
Oh, no. Oh, I thought you were dealing with
So
that.
Councillor Guthrie had an interest in the same item, which is what's caused the confusion.
Well, yeah, closed.
Yeah, beg your pardon, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And Councillor O'Neill, you were doing that because obviously maybe it was going to go into closed, and then you've already declared that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So is there any other declarations we've got before we go into closed?
I've got one.
C4.
Okay, so who will benefit, or who has the interest, Councillor? Is it yourself or someone else?
Can I just say it's the same as the other one?
Madam Chair.
Same as the other.
Just switch them off.
You're right.
Same as the other airport one. Oh, yeah, okay.
So if we go back to,
The one that you said that you'll remember.
Yeah.
And then it just, so therefore it wasn't.
Air Race. I just noted it or something, I think.
That there was no declarable interest.
interest because you're a member and not an executive.
Can we copy and paste that across, is that all right? Okay, is there any other conflicts in closed? Councillor McMullen. Please go ahead.
I wait for the CEO, might be still. Yes, C4, I have a personal interest.
The Roma Airport.
Correct, sorry, yeah.
Okay, so who has the interest? Self or somebody close to you?
Myself and my partner.
So is it described as a gift, loan, sponsored travel or accommodation benefits contract between council and etc., or the grant of a licence, permit, registration or approval under the Act?
No.
So it's declarable. Could you please describe the particulars of the interest?
Yeah, we own a block that basically joins the airport on the southwestern side.
And how will you benefit or gain or lose as a result of the consideration of the matter on the table today?
I'm not really sure because I don't know what we're going to discuss yet, no.
Okay. So are you seeking to leave the meeting during the discussion and voting on the matter?
No, I was going to seek to stay in.
So Councillor McMullen, that land you're talking about is nowhere near where the development is that correct?
No, Mr Mayor, on the other side of the airport, but there is an easement between us and the airport, but yeah, I just thought I originally wrote to CEO last week and just raised it again.
Right, thank you.
So it's up to council.
I'd like to move that it is in the public interest that Councillor McMullen participates and votes on agenda item C4 because a reasonable person would trust that the final decision was made in the public interest.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? So could you just repeat that motion again, please?
That it is in the public interest that Councillor McMullen participates and votes on agenda item C4 because a reasonable person would trust that the final decision was made in the public interest.
Okay, we're going to the vote. All those in favour? That's 8-0.
Sorry, just clarifying. Is that the same one as you, Councillor?
No.
Okay, thank you. Just double check.
But they've both got a connection to the airport in some way, so could be that. Okay. Righto, any other conflicts, councillors? Okay, do we have anyone that wishes to move to go into closed? Okay, who was that? Who was first? Councillor Hancock.
I move that in accordance with provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, a local government may resolve to close a meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that the councillors or members consider it necessary to close the meeting.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, any opposition?
Sorry, just
Just as a reminder, councillors, that the resolution needs to include the overview as to why we're going into closed. So I've circulated a copy of that. Could you just cast your eye over either your electronic copy or what's on the screen to make sure you're comfortable with that?
Does anyone have any questions on C3?
Why are we asking that now?
Well, just, it's not up there, so
Oh, sorry,
we
you're
can't
right.
talk about it if it's...
Yeah, sorry, Mr Mayor.
That was a typo.
All right.
So that's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's...
And then back, we're back on track there with 4.
Yeah, cool.
Good pick up.
So basically it covers all of them CEO, is that right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes,
cool.
it does.
Righto. Okay, do we need to say anything else?
Did you want me to amend that to say which is listed below or listed in the table, or?
Yes, please.
Did you want me to say it again?
Oh, no, just if you're happy to add the words as listed in the table below and shown on the screen.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So are we in close now, Mr Mayor, or what are you?
No, we're just waiting for the CEO.
No, we're right. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have a second for that motion. Councillor Burkett, and it was moved.
No, it was Councillor Taylor.
So sorry, Councillor Taylor. So is that right, CEO? We've got that right? Moved by Councillor Hancock, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to the vote. All those in favour of going into closed, 9-0. Do that one.
That's in the load.
That's in load. Don't we
Just
just
gonna
go
run
through,
out of
run
time.
through them and lay them on the table quickly as we go? It's only to be laid on the table anyway, or not?
Well, didn't you say, Cameron
No,
just
no.
said that happens anyway?
We can do that to get to the end, but
Oh, yeah.
So where are we going first?
Okay, so if council's happy, if we could do LC2, proposed minor amendment to the Maranoa planning scheme. Do we need a motion on that to change the order of business, CEO?
yes.
Yes, we could.
So that- I move that we deal with LC2 first, LC3 second.
You said LC1 before, so why don't we go 1, 2 and 3, Mr Mayor? Because you said we had to deal with LC1 before.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, good point. LC1, LC2, LC3.
So we're doing it in order?
Yeah,
Late.
Yeah.
the late. And also then C3.
Yeah.
And C5.
I get too excited about that 4.
Do we need C4 too?
No, C5, I don't think the airport was needed to be done, so this is the C5. Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Councillor McMullen, all those in favour? Away we go. Okay, LC1, application for a concession / assessments 13014303 13004486 15006646 and 15006687. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
We're not using these.
Yes, yeah.
I'd like to move that council not grant the applicant a concession under section 121D of the Local Government Regulation 2012.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Moving on to LC2, page 13, proposed minor amendment to the Maranoa planning scheme. Do we have some different wording, I think. Councillor Hancock.
I've got that.
Please go ahead.
I move that Council 1 decide to amend the Maranoa Planning Scheme 2017. 2, decide to adopt proposed minor amendment number 1 to the Maranoa Planning Scheme 2017 as presented in the supporting documents to this report. 3, give effect to proposed minor amendment number 1 on 19 February 2021. 4, fulfil the requirements for making a minor amendment to section 20 of the Planning Act 2016 and the Minister's Guideline of Rules. And 5, repeal temporary local planning instrument TLPI number of 1, 2019, Roma flood hazard overlay stage 2A effective 19 February 2021.
Do we have a seconder? No, it's changed. Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to LC3, Mitchell Office Refurbishment. Councillor Burkett.
Just what did we have to say in principles?
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote it down, John. I've got it in there. You can read mine.
Sorry.
Is it 69?
Yeah.
Page 69.
The council give in principle support to allocate.
I'd like to move the council give in principle support to the undertaking renovations of the Mitchell Administration Centre, including asbestos removal and upgrade of the building.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to the next order was C3, thank you. C3, Queensland Feral Pest Initiative Round 3 endorsement of proposals and project variation. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
Is it as is? I'll move that Council 1 receive and add the recommendations of the project assessment panel to authorise the CEO to execute the collaborative area management contracts with both the Albany Downs Cluster Group and the Strathmere Wycombe Cluster Group, and 3, authorise the CEO to execute any required deed of assignment in the management of collaborative area management contracts, and 4, authorise the CEO to execute a deed of variation between Maranoa Regional Council and the Basalt Creek Cluster Group, Perron Cluster Group and Kimberley Baringa Cluster Group if required.
We have a seconder, Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to C5, Roma Veterinary Clinic. We've got two councillors leaving the room. Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move for Council Fund $2,230, GST included, being a 50% co-contribution to the cost of replacement of the boundary fence adjoining council's vacant land described as Lot 14 on SP 300970.
We have a second to Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 7-0. If we can have the councillors back.
So are we going to lay the rest on the table?
No, it's finishing at 6.
So we don't have to say that we're laying anything on the table for leftover stuff? It would be good. Yeah, I think we do.
Can you do them all collectively?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, Councillor Burkett, please go ahead.
I'd like to move that confidential items C1, C2 and C4 be laid on the table till the next ordinary meeting.
We have a seconder. Councillor Taylor, any opposition?
Could we
Does
just
anyone wish to speak?
hang on to an
Yeah, I'm happy to amend
just
that.
in case for some reason we need a special meeting.
Seconder, happy with that? Okay, we're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. I'll close the meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance.